Chapter 708. Hearing the words just in time, Lin Feng suddenly had a bad feeling. Then he heard Miao Shihao say with a smile, "Sect Master, you should know, right? Maybe you've been busy recently and forgot? The day of the Punglai Ingzhou and Fangzhong Mountains appearance is coming soon." Ever since Tai Huang explored Yinghai in ancient times, the pattern of the appearance of the three mountains has been roughly fixed. Punglai Ingzhou and Fangzhong Mountains will appear at fixed intervals, and the difference won't be more than 3 years. It's almost time. A small file suddenly appeared in Miao Shihao's hand. He carefully trimmed his nails and said, "Brother Shihao, if I want to prove my essence soul, I'll need some help. With this, I'll be able to reach the essence soul stage easily. But this little thing is very rare and can't be found anywhere else. In the great Tianyuan world, it can only be found on Ingzhou Immortal Mountain, one of the 3 mountains of Yinghai. Therefore, I must definitely go to the 3 mountains appearance this time." He glanced at Lin Feng with his peach blossom eyes and said with a smile, "Sect Master, you must be interested in the 3 mountains of Yinghai, right?" The corner of Lin Feng's mouth twitched. I'm not interested in Yinghai anymore." Miao Shihao raised his eyebrows and instigated, "Sect Master, you can't think that way. Even if you don't want it, you can't just sit and watch Yinghai fall into the hands of other forces, right? Especially the Great Zhou dynasty, which has been operating for many years. If they can completely control Yinghai, their strength will definitely rise to a higher level." Lin Feng laughed dryly. "I wish you success in this trip and find the rare treasure you need, Shihao." Miao Shihao smiled and said, "Let's go together. Sect Master, you can close your eyes and imagine it. Thousands of miles of the sea, the vast horizon, under such beautiful scenery, you and I traveling together. TSK, just thinking about it makes one yearn for it." "I don't think so at all." Lin Feng rolled his eyes inwardly and changed the topic. "Since you've come out of your closed-door training, there's something I want you to confirm for me. Although I have my doubts, my knowledge of the inner secrets of the Taishu Temple is still limited." As he spoke, Lin Feng stretched out his hand and waved it in the void. An illusion of light and shadow appeared. The scene in the illusory realm changed, recording the battle between Zhou Yunsong and Chen Xingyu in the 3rd stage of the communication conference. This illusion wasn't like the meticulous recording of the Grand Technique Hall's training ground. It was merely a reconstruction of the scene. Miao Shihao lazily glanced at them. Suddenly, his eyes flickered and the lazy smile on his face disappeared. His expression became serious. "Blazing yang physique, extreme yin physique." Miao Shihao mumbled to himself. His expression was somewhat startled as he stared at Zhou Yunsong and Chen Xingyu for a moment. Then he laughed coldly and said hee. However, after laughing coldly, Miao Shihao's expression became somewhat disappointed and lost. He was also somewhat absent-minded. At this moment, his entire temperament had changed. He was no longer effeminate. Although his temperament was still somewhat feminine, he had the appearance of a proper young man. It was just that he appeared melancholy. Brother Shihao, who had changed from a sissy to an artistic youth, stared at Zhou Yunsong and Chen Xingyu. After a while he shook his head and turned to look at Lin Feng. "Sect Master, what do you suspect in your heart?" Miao Shihao's expression was somewhat melancholic and somewhat perplexed. His gaze became a little clearer, as if he had just woken up from his memories. Lin Feng spoke of his guess. Miao Shihao nodded. "That's right. Sect Master, there's at least an 80% chance that your guess is correct." He couldn't help but turn his head to look at Zhou Yunsong and Chen Xingyu in the light and shadow illusion again. After a while he said, "I'm afraid that there's a 99% chance that it's as you've guessed, Sect Master." Lin Feng put his hands behind his back and stared at Zhou Yunsong and Chen Xingyu. After a while he said, "Can you see their origins?" Miao Shihao shook his head regretfully. Although the number is limited, the Great Heaven Primal World has such a long history. There are still quite a few that can be counted. I can't be completely certain. Just look at the Taishu Temple. There's more than one in history. Since that's the case, then let's continue observing. Lin Feng nodded. With a thought, the light and shadow illusion disappeared. The scene before him disappeared. Miao Shihao was slightly absent-minded as if he was once again immersed in his memories. Lin Feng said silently, "I'll inform you if there's any update on this matter." Miao Shihao woke up. He shook his head slightly and his eyes became clear again. However, a lazy smile appeared on his face again. His temperament became enchanting again. The artistic youth's demeanor disappeared, and he returned to his original sissy look. "Sect Master, let's continue to discuss about traveling to Yinghai together." Miao Shihao covered his mouth and smiled. Lin Feng acted as if he didn't hear him and said lightly, "If you're going overseas, you should nourish your supernatural power and get ready." Miao Shihao looked at him and laughed. "Sect Master, if you're not going, I'll miss out on a lot of fun." After saying that, he turned around and left. Lin Feng rolled his eyes. "I really don't want to go to Yinghai now." As he was thinking, Lin Feng suddenly thought of something. He said with a smile, "What day is it today? Those who are in seclusion have all come out." A deep voice came from outside the All-Heaven Great Hall. "Jie Yu and his wife greet Sect Master." Lin Feng smiled nonchalantly. "There's no need to be so polite. Come in." A high-spirited black man and a tall white-clothed woman walked into the Great Hall together. They were Black Dragon Jie Yu and his wife Jade Dragon White Light. Lin Feng glanced at Jie Yu. "Oh, not bad. You're already at the peak of mid-stage Demon King. You're just a step away from late-stage Demon King." Jie Yu hurriedly shook his head. "I'm useless. I've failed to advance to late-stage Demon King. I've disappointed Sect Master." Previously from Lin Feng, he obtained a whole set of bones left behind by a yellow dragon who achieved the indestructible demon soul realm. After refining and absorbing it, he very easily broke through to the middle stage of Demon King realm. But all the way to the peak of the middle stage of Demon King realm, he stagnated and fell into a bottleneck. The advanced demonic Beast King realm was already within his reach. However, he was still unable to break through the last piece of paper that he had yet to cross. This made the old black dragon somewhat depressed. He was 100% sure that if his wife, White Light, refined that set of Dragon King skeleton, she could definitely break through to late-stage Demon King. White Light looked at Jie Yu rather pitifully. Actually, regardless of whether it was Jie Yu or she herself, they both faintly sensed something in their hearts. Jie Yu falling into a bottleneck was mostly because of mental state issues, and the source of it was precisely White Light. Jie Yu loved and feared his wife. When it came to cultivation, his wife was both his motivation and his pressure at the same time. The conflicting and complicated feelings within were really incomprehensible to outsiders. "Oh, it's fine." Lin Feng spread out his palm. Several resplendent crystals flickered in his palm. Waves of dragon might spread out, shaking the minds of Jie Yu and White Light. "Dragon scale jade?" Jie Yu blurted out. White Light also revealed a look of surprise. The resplendent crystals in front of them were the scales left behind by Dragon King who had achieved an indestructible demon soul. After thousands of years of accumulation in some rare mineral deposits, it was finally fused with the mineral deposits and then mined again. It contained the essence of the dragon race's bloodline and demonic power, and also perfectly integrated with the spiritual chi of other heavenly treasures. It was even more precious than the dragon scales of ordinary dragon kings. Especially for the dragon race, it was a cultivation treasure. Lin Feng held the dragon scale jade in his hand and said with a smile, "You were in closed-door cultivation before, so there are some things you don't know. 3 years ago, our sect occupied a medium-sized world in the vast thousand domains. I named it the Heaven Mystic Realm." Jie Yu and White Light nodded together. "Although I'm not clear about the specific situation, but after coming out of closed-door cultivation, I heard the name mentioned by people in the sect. There are all kinds of resources in the Heaven Mystic Realm, and the reserves are quite abundant. Apart from our sect's own use, it is also used for trading with other forces." Lin Feng smiled and tossed the dragon scale jade in his hand to Jie Yu. "This is an item used by the Great Qin dynasty for trading." Jie Yu and White Light suddenly understood. The Great Qin dynasty occupied the ancient Sky Dragon domain, which naturally had dragon scale jade accumulated. Sect Master, how can this be?" Jie Yu was overjoyed and wanted to accept the dragon scale jade. White light beside him glared at him. The old dragon also reacted and said with some hesitation, I can't accept a reward without doing anything. You just bestowed this old dragon with the Dragon King's skeleton. Lin Feng said indifferently, You are loyal to our sect, I will naturally not treat you badly. Not only you, Nineclawed, Kuei-Nyo and the others are also the same. You have been in closed-door cultivation all these years, and they have received a lot of benefits. This is the reward you deserve. Jieyu happily accepted the dragon scale jade. He glanced at white light next to him, and made up his mind. He had already obtained the dragon bones, and these dragon scale jades naturally had to be given to his wife. These dragon scale jades are all for you. I have other arrangements for white light. Lin Feng seemed to see through the old black dragon's thoughts, and said, These dragon scale jades are for you to use after you break through to the late Demon King stage. Jieyu and white light were both taken aback. Lin Feng smiled. Later, when you have successfully broken through to the late Demon King stage, I have an errand for you and your husband. Although it is an errand, it is also an opportunity. White light hurriedly thanked him, but was also a little frightened. Sect Master Lin I. No need to say more, you will naturally understand when the time comes. Lin Feng waved his hand, interrupting her. White light pondered for a moment, looked at his husband Jieyu, and finally nodded. Jieyu tentatively asked, Sect Master, you just said that I have to break through to the late Demon King stage to do this errand? But Lin Feng smiled. I also know a thing or two about the reason why you are stuck in a bottleneck. Hearing him say so, Jieyu lowered his head in embarrassment, and white light beside him was also a little embarrassed. Lin Feng said slowly, Since I know, I will now point out a clear path for you. Just do as I say, and breaking through to the late Demon King stage is just around the corner. Sect Master, what method? Jieyu's eyes lit up, and white light beside him also revealed an expectant expression, feeling happy that his husband could take a step further. Lin Feng pointed in the direction of Fun Tianya, and said indifferently, Go find my eldest disciple, Xiaoyan, he has the ability to help you. Hearing that, Jieyu immediately said gratefully, Jieyu will sacrifice his life to serve the sect. White light was also grateful to Lin Feng. My husband staying in Xianmen Tianzong is also a fortuitous encounter. Chapter 709. Filled with hope and joy, Jieyu and his wife came to Burning Heaven Cliff to seek Xiaoyan's help. After stating the purpose of coming, Xiaoyan threw Jieyu a medicinal bottle after giving him a glance, pursing his lips. Pay attention to the dosage. Don't take too much each time. Because we took into account that you dragons have strong physiques, the medicinal effect is very fierce. Before coming, considering that Xiaoyan was in charge of the pill room, and was also the #1 alchemy expert in Xianmen Tianzong, Jieyu and his wife also roughly expected that the help Xiaoyan provided might come from medicinal pills. Could it be a type of barrier-breaking pill that helps to break through realm bottlenecks, greatly increasing the effect? Jieyu was puzzled. But I'm a dragon. Many human medicinal pills have no effect after taking them. While thinking in his heart, Jieyu received the medicinal bottle, and took a look at the label on the porcelain bottle. I love a piece of wood? What's this? Jieyu stared with wide eyes, unable to make heads or tails of it, looking at Xiaoyan doubtfully. White light beside him also felt baffled. Xiaoyan coughed dryly. You'll know after you take it. And fellow Taoist white light can also take it. But this medicine is limited to the two of you. Also, don't do it at my place and don't do it at other places on the mountain. Return to the quiet room you're staying at, and close the door before taking it. Jieyu said in bewilderment. After taking medicinal pills, this old dragon, I will definitely enter closed seclusion. Elder Xiao, you don't need to specially remind me. Xiaoyan gave him a glance and said solemnly. Although what was said just now is very important, what I'm going to say next is the most important point. Jieyu and white light exchanged glances and also straightened their expressions. Say it. No matter which one of you husband and wife takes the medicinal pill, the other person must be present at that time. Especially after taking the medicine, you husband and wife must stay together. Xiaoyan's expression was very solemn, but his tone was somewhat dry. At the same time, There mustn't be a third party present. Jieyu and White Light were even more baffled. Following that, they asked Xiaoyan again, but the other party refused to say anything and directly sent the husband and wife pair away. Watching the two of them leave with their heads full of question marks, Xiaoyan instantly felt cold sweat on his back and a bitter taste in his mouth. Why does it feel so unreliable? While Xiaoyan was thinking, Shi Tianhao's shout was heard coming from the barren heaven valley from afar. You glutton! You ate more than half of the swan and I meat we just hunted. Why didn't you choke to death? Is that Tunten back? Xiaoyan was taken aback for a moment before he quickly reacted. In recent years, Tunten had spent more than half of his time in the Xianmen Tianzong world, giving the managers and disciples in Xianmen Tianzong a headache. This ferocious little foodie could be said to be very happy living there. All sorts of things, as long as they were rich in spirit qi. It did not matter if they were cold or raw. Regardless of whether they were alive or not, Tunten would open her mouth and gorge herself on them, eating till oil dripped from her mouth. Even for the recent Kunlun Mountain Dharma assembly, Tunten did not return and instead lingered in the Xianmen world, enjoying herself to the point of forgetting home. However, Xiaoyan, Shi Tianhao and the rest were always on high alert. Every time Tunten returned to the mountain, the spirit beasts reared in the barren heaven valley, and the pill rooms directly under Fun Tianya's jurisdiction were the areas where she wreaked havoc. A moment of carelessness and most of the spirit herbs, spirit beasts and pills were eaten by Tunten. Without another word, Xiaoyan immediately headed back to the Sky Gold Pavilion. Let's go back to the Sky Gold Pavilion and tidy up the pills there. Otherwise, Tunten will steal them all again. Her appetite is getting bigger and bigger. The desolate Heaven Valley was currently in chaos. Shi Tianhao grabbed Tunten by the collar and lifted her into the air as he bared his teeth and said, "You're really something. I didn't even have time to enjoy the swanny meat I just hunted, but you ate more than half of it in one bite." The Taotia's natural lifespan was much longer than that of humans. Hence, the past few years were not too long for Tunten, who had already formed a demon nascent soul. She still looked like a little girl in human form, and was at most 1 or 2 years older than Tunten. Lin Tong was able to practice the human race's cultivation arts after being nurtured by Lin Feng and Xiao Yan, but after taking human form, her appearance was at least similar to that of a human. As a result, she now looked even older than Tunten. Tunten snorted when Shi Tianhao grabbed her by the collar. When Shi Tianhao fought back, she swallowed more than half of his flesh. It came from a great saint stage Swanni. Even if Tunten activated the Taotai clan's Swallow the Heavens and devour the earth divine ability, it would still take some time to digest it. Tunten made a face at Shi Tianhao and said, "It doesn't taste good. If you like it, you can have the rest." With a swish, Shi Tianhao took out a huge bowl from somewhere. The mouth of the bowl seemed to be able to hold a river, and was extremely large. He threw Tunten inside. "Nonsense. Do you want to keep all the swanni meat for yourself?" Shi Tianhao bared his teeth and sneered at her. "You ate my swanni meat, so I'll have a taste of Taotai meat today." "I don't want to. I already said that my body is not the original flesh of a Taotai." Tunten waved its limbs and screamed as it tried to climb out of the bowl. Just as it reached the edge of the bowl, it was slapped down by Shi Tianhao. Shi Tianhao rubbed his chin and nodded. "You just swallowed the swanni meat, so its demonic power and bloodline essence should not have dissipated. If I eat your meat now, I should be able to extract the essence of the swanni's flesh and blood." Tunten also bared its teeth at him. "Stop dreaming. I've already digested the essence of the flesh and blood long ago." In the desolate Sky Valley, Huang Jinting sat cross-legged on the ground and supported his head with his hands. He sighed. Aunt Tunten stole Master's food again. This time Master put it in a big bowl. She will definitely suffer again. Why doesn't she learn her lesson? The desolate Sky Valley true disciples laughed and looked at him. Zhuge Wanqiu patted him on the shoulder. "You still have the face to talk about Aunt Tunten. Didn't you also forget the pain once the scar healed?" While the group was laughing and joking, a violent tremor suddenly came from a cave dwelling in Yujing Mountain, as if a battle had broken out. Tunten immediately forgot to bicker with Shi Tianhao. With a face full of curiosity, it almost jumped out of the bowl. "What happened? What happened? The next moment, it was slapped back to the bottom of the bowl by Shi Tianhao. However, Shi Tianhao also looked over curiously. This feeling, it's at least 2 experts who have formed Yuanying or demon nascent are fighting. This aura fluctuation should be demonic aura. In the demonic aura, there is also some dragon aura? Shi Tianhao was really surprised this time. 2 members of the dragon clan are fighting? There are only Jieyu and his wife in the dragon clan on Yujing Mountain. Could it be that they are fighting? Such violent aura fluctuations, it doesn't look like an ordinary exchange. They are really fighting. Tunton leaned on the edge of the bowl with half its body sticking out. Hearing this, it said disdainfully, Jieyu? Forget it. If the opponent is Big Sister White Light, would he dare to fight back? If he dares to fight back, he will only be beaten worse. After carefully sensing, Tunton also revealed a look of surprise. That's not right. It really is in the direction of Jieyu and Big Sister White Light's cave dwelling. Shi Tianhao was rather overjoyed. Looks like that old dragon Jieyu has finally made up his mind to resist. It's really like what Master said. Where there is oppression, there will be resistance. After slapping Tunton back again, which was about to climb out of the bowl, Shi Tianhao smiled. Let's go see how the battle is going. Shi Tianhao immediately ignored Tunton and flew out of desolate Heaven Valley. He came to Yujing Mountain and was about to go to Jieyu and his wife's cave dwelling when he was stopped by Xiaoyan, who came out of Heavenly Gold Pavilion. Cough cough, little junior brother, let's not go. Xiaoyan coughed dryly. It's a matter between husband and wife, let's not get involved. Shi Tianhao asked curiously, eldest senior brother, do you know something? Xiaoyan shook his head awkwardly. No, it's just a private matter, let's not get involved. As they spoke, the demonic power undulations at the cave dwelling gradually became less violent, but they were still entangled, as if the battle had fallen into a stalemate. As time passed, the demonic power undulations gradually weakened, but in the end, they suddenly became more violent, but soon calmed down. Tunton and the others came to Xiaoyan and Shi Tianhao's side. Everyone looked curiously at Jieyu and his wife's cave dwelling. Suddenly, a single demonic power undulation expanded, extremely vast. Tunton, who was also from the demon race, was the first to react. This is the heaven and earth avatar formed from a mid-stage demon king advancing to a late-stage demon king? This demonic power undulation is not Big Sister White Light, but Jieyu, that old black dragon? Is there a mistake somewhere? Xiaoyan smacked his lips. As expected, it's a cultivation bottleneck caused by psychological factors. Eldest senior brother, what did you say? Shi Tianhao turned his head and asked. Xiaoyan said guiltily. I said I'm going to hide first. No, I mean I still have something to do and need to go to the All Heavens Great Hall to find my master. See you later. With that, Xiaoyan turned to leave, but before he could take a step, he heard an angry roar behind him. Xiaoyan, don't go. While speaking, 2 figures, one black and one white, had already rushed in front of Xiaoyan, Shi Tianhao and the others. One was the black dragon Jieyu, who had just reached the advanced demon king realm, and seemed to be glowing with youth. But at this moment, the expression on his face was not proud of his success, but a little embarrassed. The other was naturally his wife, Jade Dragon White Light. She was glaring fiercely at Xiaoyan, gnashing her teeth and saying, Well, you actually gave this old loach that kind of thing. What are your intentions? Apart from occasionally appearing violent in front of Jieyu, White Light was very courteous in front of anyone else. Right now, this performance was enough to prove that she was exceptionally furious. Xiaoyan turned around with a bitter smile and spread his palms. Don't be angry, I'm just helping you guys too. I absolutely have no ill intentions. White Light said angrily. Then you also can't use that kind of medicinal pill to swindle us husband and wife. Xiaoyan scratched his head rather vexedly and said helplessly, That if I say that this is actually my master's idea, will you guys believe it? No way. This time, not just White Light. Even Jieyu opened his mouth and said flatly without any hesitation, Impossible. Xiaoyan immediately had an impulse to slam his head into Jade Capital Mountain beneath his feet. I knew it would be like this. Chapter 710. Xiaoyan wanted to cry but had no tears at this time, because he suddenly remembered a very important matter. Back then, Lin Feng only verbally instructed him about this matter. There was no substantive thing, not even a pill formula. It was slowly researched out by Xiaoyan himself after the event. In other words, first disregarding whether others believed Lin Feng or him. Even if he wanted to prove that this matter was incited by Lin Feng, he did not have any substantive evidence on hand either. At this moment, Jieyu and his wife in front of him even revealed looks of disdain when they looked at him. In their minds, Xiaoyan had done something bad himself and wanted to push the blame onto his master, making him appear even more shameless to the extreme. This discovery made Xiaoyan burst into tears even more. I can't clear my name even if I jump into the Yellow River this time. He turned his head to look at Shi Tianhao beside him, and saw that Shi Tianhao had a blank expression, still completely unable to figure out the situation. Xiaoyan hung his head powerlessly. He had to shoulder this black pot even if he did not want to. At this moment he had the urge to cry against the wind. I even said that little junior brother is becoming more and more black-hearted, becoming more and more like master. Looking at it now, little junior brother is as pure as a baby. He waved his hand dejectedly. Forget it, forget it. I was impetuous. Please forgive me, husband and wife. Jieyu rubbed his hands at this time and moved in front of White Light, saying with a fawning smile, Wife, you see, Elder Xiao has good intentions too. White Light's eyes immediately went wide, his gaze shifting from Xiaoyan's side to Jieyu, making Jieyu instantly short of breath. But he still muttered softly, It's not just me who took the medicinal pill, you took it too. You still dare to say. White Light's face turned slightly red, becoming increasingly angry from embarrassment. Jieyu hurriedly raised his hands in surrender. Not saying, I won't say. I won't say. Jieyu took out the small bottle containing the medicinal pill, and returned it to Xiaoyan embarrassedly. That Elder Xiao, it's better to return this thing to you. White Light said hatefully. What are you still keeping it for? You should directly destroy it. Xiaoyan received the pill bottle and secretly used his supernatural power to transmit his voice to Jieyu. The problem has been completely solved? I really don't have any bad intentions. Previously, you were stuck in a bottleneck and couldn't advance to the late-stage Demon King realm mainly because of a mental barrier. A large part of this mental barrier is because of your wife. Keeping your love for her and getting rid of your reverence for her will not only benefit your married life, but it will also benefit your cultivation. That's why you were able to break through the bottleneck and become a late-stage Demon King. But it wasn't because you were having sex. Jieyu's face turned red. I know now, but don't worry, the problem has really been solved. Actually, it's just a window paper. Once it's broken this time, there won't be a problem in the future. Xiaoyan nodded and said, That's good. I've done a good deed. That's right. Although I was a little angry at being deceived after thinking about it, I am still very grateful to you, Elder Xiao. The two of them laughed dryly, but no matter what, it was still a little awkward. Right at this moment, Xiaoyan suddenly felt his hand sink. It was Tuntin pouncing over and grabbing the porcelain bottle containing the pills. Xiaoyan frowned and said, What the hell are you doing? Tuntin cried out in dissatisfaction. I want this pill too. Cough, 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 cough. This earth-shattering sentence made Xiaoyan, Jieyu and White Light, the three of them, nearly choked to death on their own saliva. Nonsense, do you know what this is? Xiaoyan did not know whether to laugh or cry. I'm already in a mess here. Don't add more trouble for me. Tuntin snorted in dissatisfaction. Good stuff. Why does this old black dragon have it but I don't? Jieyu looked up at the sky and laughed. Good stuff? That's right, it's indeed good stuff, ugh. White Light nudged him with his elbow, causing Jieyu to be unable to say the rest of his words. White Light smiled bitterly and said to Tuntin, Tuntin, this really isn't anything good. Tuntin snorted and said, I knew it. Big sister White Light will protect him when it comes to the matter of that old black dragon. I really don't know what I love a piece of firewood means, but I can tell that Jieyu, that guy, can break through the bottleneck from mid-stage demonic king to late-stage demonic king. It's all thanks to this pill. Xiao Yan's expression was strange, Jie Yu's was embarrassed, and White Light's face was flushed red. The three of them looked at each other, and for a moment, they all had a feeling that what she said made a lot of sense, and they were actually speechless. Tunton was pleased with himself and completely snatched the porcelain bottle containing the pills. I also want to use this pill to break through. She made a face at Jie Yu. Even this old dragon who's afraid of his wife is a late-stage demonic king, but I'm still stuck at early-stage demonic king. How can this do? I was already a demonic king before my physical body was destroyed. At that time, this old dragon hadn't even formed a demonic nascent, and was still a demonic commander. Due to the difference in bloodline, there would be a huge difference in cultivation between the demonic race and the demonic race. Some demonic races would reproduce. After the offspring were born, although they had great potential, they didn't have any demonic power or cultivation. They needed to cultivate step by step and gradually grow, and had nothing to do with the cultivation of their parents. But some demonic races, if their parents were experts with extremely high cultivation, then the offspring they gave birth to would be born very powerful demonic races. There was no lack of demonic commanders, or even demonic kings when they were born. Tunton was one such case. Her father, the great Saint Taotai of the undying demonic soul second layer primordial true spirit level, and her mother, the purple wind Taotai demon king, gave birth to Tunton, which was an early stage demonic king. The uniqueness of the Taotai and other parts of the demonic race's bloodline inheritance seemed to be much more powerful than Shi Tianhao's innate foundation establishment. But all things in the world had their own balance. Tunton was powerful, but there were many difficulties that were hard to mention. First of all, it was extremely difficult for the demonic race to give birth to a bloodline and reproduce, even more difficult than the pure-blooded dragon race. Tunton's father and mother had only given birth to Tunton in their long lives of thousands, or even tens of thousands of years. The population of the entire Taotai demon race was very small. Moreover, for an underage demonic race like Tunton, although she was innately powerful, it was extremely difficult for her to continue to cultivate and raise her cultivation level. She had to put in hundreds of times more effort than ordinary demonic race. This situation would only change after she attained the undying demonic soul stage. In this aspect, she was completely different from human race cultivators like Shi Tianhao. Therefore, some demonic race cultivators like Tunton would encounter a very awkward situation. For example, she was born a demon commander and could look down on her peers, but it was difficult to raise her cultivation level. She could only be a demon commander for her entire life, and could only watch helplessly as people who were originally inferior to her surpassed her. Although the lifespan of the demon race was generally longer than that of the human race, her lifespan was naturally relatively limited if she could not form a demon nascent. In the end, she could only watch as her lifespan came to an end, but she was still unable to form a nascent soul. The bitterness and despair she felt was self-evident. Among these innately powerful demon clans, there were many who ended up like this. Where there was gain, there was bound to be loss. As soon as she was born, she attained a height that others might not be able to reach even after many years of hard work. At the same time, she possessed outstanding strength at a young age. But the price she had to pay was that her future cultivation process would be hundreds of times more difficult. Whether it was a good thing or a bad thing, it all depended on one's luck in the future. If one could break through all the difficulties and finally achieve the immortal demon soul, then one would stand on the same starting line as the other demon race members who cultivated to the same level. However, Tunton was born as an initial demon king, which was a relatively rare situation in the Taotai race. Her starting point was much higher than her companions who were born as demon generals or demon commanders. But correspondingly, the difficulty for her to improve was also much higher. It could even be said that even if she had a huge amount of resources, without enough opportunities and luck, it would not be strange for her to be stuck at the initial Demon King stage for the rest of her life. In a sense, her original physical body was destroyed, leaving behind only a remnant soul. Although it caused her strength to plummet, it also allowed her to break free from the shackles of fate to a certain extent. It was much easier for Tunton to raise her cultivation level compared to before her physical body was destroyed. Fortune and misfortune came hand in hand. This was also a kind of opportunity and luck. It was just that compared to other demonic race cultivators, it was much more difficult for Tunten to raise her cultivation level. Therefore, when Tunten saw that Jieyu had advanced from the intermediate Demon King stage to the advanced Demon King stage, golden light immediately burst out from Tunten's eyes. Tunten was overjoyed as it snatched the medicine bottle. Xiaoyan smiled bitterly. I can only tell her the truth. Otherwise, when she really takes the medicine, that will really be the beginning of the nightmare. White Light's cheeks were so red that blood was about to drip out, while Jieyu and Xiaoyan smiled bitterly. But there was no other way. In order to prevent Tunten from making a bigger mess, they could only go forward with Xiaoyan and secretly tell Tunten the truth through voice transmission. Tunten's eyes widened after listening, a little absent-minded. After a long while, she seemed to have just recovered, sweeping a glance at Xiaoyan and Jieyu. I don't believe you. She looked at White Light and asked, Big Sister White Light, is what they said true? Xiaoyan and Jieyu looked helplessly at White Light. White Light sighed and whispered to Tunten, Be good Tunten, this is really that kind of lowly thing. Tunten blinked its big eyes. Really? 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 Xiaoyan, Jieyu, White Light, three people nodded their heads vigorously together. Who knew that Tunten suddenly burst into laughter. Ha 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 ha. That's great. That's really great. Xiaoyan smiled bitterly. You idiot, why don't you believe it? Tunten stopped laughing, but a proud smile still appeared on its face. I believe it. Even if I don't believe you, I believe Big Sister White Light. Xiaoyan and the others could not help but be baffled. Then why do you still? Tunten directly swallowed the entire porcelain bottle into its mouth, but it did not eat the elixir. Instead, it used its internal space to temporarily store the porcelain bottle. Then, it put its hands on its waist and said with a smile, Although I also feel it's a pity that it's not a cultivation-raising elixir. This thing is even better than cultivation-raising elixir to me. Tunten waved a small fist and chuckled. With this I love a piece of firewood, Blackwater mysterious underworld. Let's see how you can escape from my palm. Ha 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 ha. Xiaoyan. Jieyu. White Light. Chapter 711. Lin Feng, who was sitting peacefully in the All-Heaven Great Hall, was speechless as he watched Tunten laugh heartily. He didn't know what to say for a moment. You glutton. Lin Feng didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he shook his head. He began to seriously consider whether he should confiscate the bottle of medicine from Tunten, so that she wouldn't harm a certain young man of the mysterious underworld race in the future. Jieyu's advancement to a late-stage demon monarch and Tunten's return to the mountain were just a small interlude for Yujing Mountain and Xianmen Tianzong as a whole. On Lin Feng's side, he was preparing for other official matters. Xiaoyan and the others polished their cultivation techniques while teaching their disciples. Apart from the true disciples of their respective sects, they also had to take care of the foundation disciples on the Cloud Peak. The celestial sect of 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 the celestial sect. Xiaoyan, Zhu Yi and the rest only open a forum and give a lecture every once in a while, answering questions and dispelling doubts of the disciples. Lin Feng himself was only responsible for teaching Xiaoyan and the other 7 true disciples. Occasionally he would give lectures to the true disciples. But in these few days after the end of the Kunlun Mountain Spell Assembly, because the 3rd opening ceremony had just been held, a large number of new disciples without any foundation entered the sect. So Xiaoyan, Zhu Yi and the others personally asked about the cultivation of these foundational disciples during the period when they just entered the sect. During this process, they were actually conducting another round of probing to confirm the potential of the new disciples. The 3rd opening ceremony, no matter if it's the overall quality or the number of good seedlings, the disciples that entered the sect all surpassed the previous 2 times. Xiaoyan said from the bottom of his heart. The top 2, their future accomplishments may not be lower than Yun Song's. Compared to the previous 2 opening ceremonies, the momentum Xianmen Tianzong had accumulated over the years, its reputation, And a bit of luck had created the third opening ceremony with the best quality of students in history. Yu Hongyan smiled and said, "You mean Tang Jun and Han Yang, right?" Shi Tianhao joked. Eldest senior brother is mainly interested in that Tang Jun TSK, innate fire spirit body, Azure Flame Emperor's body. I remember that in the entire history of the Tianyuan Great World, there was only one with this physique, right? It's something that happened in ancient times. Tang Jun and Han Yang were the two people with the best results in the heart-reflecting staircase test. Among them, Tang Jun was already at the early stage of foundation establishment, and had the highest cultivation among this batch of foundation establishment disciples. He was only 15 years old this year, and his potential was equally outstanding. Xiaoyan admitted frankly, "This child's foundation is one thing, but his personality and will are also outstanding. I do have a good opinion of him." He paused for a moment, then continued, "However, he seems to have other secrets. Master once mentioned that he might be related to the Lei family that has now joined the Great Zhou dynasty." The brothers all nodded. They gathered on Yujing Mountain, and their gazes fell on the cloud peak. In the illusion of light and shadow in front of them, the figure of a young man who was not even 10 years old was projected. He had delicate features, and his gaze was extremely lively. Although he was still a child, one could already tell from his features that he would definitely grow up to be a handsome man. This young man was called Han Yang. His results on the heart-reflecting staircase were as outstanding as Tang Jun's, and far surpassed the others. When Zhuyi had first picked him up and brought him back to Kunlun Mountain, he had been quite a legend. At that time, the little guy had begged for a living. He was intelligent and good at observation. Although he was young, he had a lot of wisdom. However, his personality was not very tactful. Although he had the ability to get along well with most people as long as he was willing, Han Yang's personality was a bit unruly and passive. He would only treat others well if others treated him well. Shi Tianhao smiled and said, "I don't know which of us he will choose to be his disciple in the end. I have a good opinion of this kid." The others all shouted at him together, "Come on, it's not enough to trick little Huang. You want to trick another one? Or perhaps little Huang has disappointed you, and you still want to raise a little demon king in disguise like you?" Shi Tianhao smiled, and was not angry. He only looked at Zhu Yi and said, "Although he was brought back by second brother, I'm afraid he is not to your liking." Zhu Yi smiled faintly. "His nature is not bad. A piece of unpolished jade. He is also young. With good guidance and careful carving, he will definitely become a talent." Just as he spoke, Zhu Yi suddenly noticed Luo Qinggu to the side staring at Han Yang, lost in thought. "What's the matter, junior sister?" The others also noticed this. Luo Qinggu returned to her senses, saying somewhat hesitantly, "When I was teaching this batch of foundation disciples before, this Han Yang gave me a somewhat special feeling. How should I describe it? And a very familiar feeling." The others looked at each other. Zhu Yi muttered to himself a moment before asking, "Junior sister's meaning is that you feel a talent for practicing the sword in this child?" Luo Qinggu nodded and answered, "What senior brother Zhu Yi said is correct. Xiao Wu indeed has this kind of feeling. This child might develop on the sword path in the future." "Junior sister is too cunning." Shi Tianhao smiled and said, "You are hinting that you want this disciple." Luo Qinggu giggled, "No need to hint. Xiao Wu indeed feels that we are destined to be master and disciple. It just so happens that I don't have a disciple under me. This is the first time I open the door to accept a disciple. How can I get the first prize? I ask senior brothers to let me go. Xiao Wu thanks in advance." Xiao Yan smiled and said, "When the time comes, it will be the disciples who choose us first. Then it will be our turn to test them. If they don't choose you, there is no way." Luo Qinggu stuck out her tongue and made a face at Xiao Yan. "Senior brother Xiao Yan, don't bully Xiao Wu for being inexperienced. I know that when Yunfeng opens the altar to give lectures, everyone imperceptibly guides the chosen disciple to get close to them." The senior and junior brothers immediately laughed. Yangqing smiled and looked at the group of foundation disciples on Yunfeng in the light and shadow illusion. This group of disciples has good aptitude. Besides Tang Jun and Han Yang, who are the most outstanding, the The quality of the other seedlings is also very good. To the side, Wang Lin nodded and pointed at a few people. That woman, that pair of brother and sister, and that youth, they are all not bad. Li Yuanfang said. Dream Red Building Yixin Hui, Yixin Xuan Tianyin Qing. Luo Qingwu smiled and said, Zhou Yinsong Su Yinsheng, and now there is Tianyin Qing. Haha, people who don't know would think that our next generation is the Yin generation. Yu Hongyan also smiled faintly. Yin Sheng has repented from the wrong path, and Yin Song is shockingly talented. If this Tianyin Qing can also grow to the heights expected, our Xianmen Tianzong's second-generation disciples will have a San Yun, and that will be a beautiful story. Xiao Yan said. After this spell assembly, the true disciples with outstanding performance can also be officially accepted as disciples. At that time, there will be 2 standards for the true disciple assessment. Those who pass the higher standard can become the second-generation true disciple, and those who pass the lower standard can become the third-generation true disciple. Zhu Yi also said. In addition to 6th junior brother and junior sister, everyone should also decide on the disciple who can inherit the third generation. My Qiantian Palace's assessment this time will be Luo Jia. Xiao Yin said. I'm with Lu Xiaofeng. Tian Quan. Zhao Huan. Zhuge Wanqiu. In the end, only Yang Qing was left. He shook his head. If Yin Song wants to accept a disciple, he should at least wait until he passes the stage of core formation and the Yin fire tribulation. Xiao Yan and the others nodded in agreement. Inside the All Heavens Great Hall, Lin Feng listened to the discussion of Xiao Yan and the others, and he couldn't help but smile. The little one's eyesight has also been trained. Different from the rough evaluation of Xiao Yan and the others, Lin Feng could see the specific data of the 4 innate talents and potential. The reason why they had such a great harvest this time was because Tang Jun and Han Yang were both monstrous geniuses with a total value of 30 points or more. The others such as Tan Yunqing, Meng Honglu, and the Yi siblings were also rare geniuses. Their harvest from the 3rd opening of the mountain gate was almost equivalent to all of their previous harvests. Zhou Yunsong, Tang Jun, Han Yang, Huang Jinting and Yang Tai. Lin Feng thought to himself. The second generation of seeds is almost enough. The next talents will have to be reserved for the 3rd generation. While thinking, he called for Xiao Yan and the others to gather in the All Heavens Great Hall. What do you plan to do next? Lin Feng asked when they met. Xiao Yan and the others looked at each other. Xiao Yan was the first to answer. Other than teaching disciples, nothing special. Disciple will bring Yin Song to the great Zhou dynasty to get his sister back, Zhu Yi answered. Wang Lin thought for a while and said, Disciple wants to enter the void battlefield again to find information about the underworld hall. The late-stage Yuanying cultivator, who slaughtered his people, was still at large. Yu Hongyan answered, Disciple is going to go into seclusion to figure out Taoist techniques and polish magic power in preparation for forming the nascent soul. Yang Qing thought for a while and said, Other than taking care of and teaching Yin Song, there is nothing special. Li Yuanfang answered, Disciple is fine. Disciple is going to teach Yin Feng and lay the foundation for cultivation. Shi Tianhao no longer had a playful expression on his face. Disciple is going to enter the void battlefield with 3rd senior brother. There has been no news of father and mother. Grandfather went to the void battlefield to look for them and hasn't returned for 3 years. Luo Qingwu answered. Disciple is also fine. Disciple has some new understanding of using the 10 lands absolute Yin sword through the spell assembly this time. I need to think about it and organize it. Lin Feng nodded his head. I've told you guys before that the 3 mountains of Yingxi are about to appear. Even though there's a rough time, the exact time isn't certain. In order to avoid delays, those of you who have nothing to do right now might as well head to Yingxi first with me. You can also familiarize yourself with the environment and know your enemy. Little Linzi and Tianhao will go to the void battlefield and do what you want to do with peace of mind. It doesn't matter if you miss the trip to Yinghai. Anyway, you will get many good things, Lin Feng said. The others, including Wang Lin and Shi Tianhao, also laughed. Hong Yan can go into seclusion. While Xiao Wu is figuring out her own sword principle, You can take care of the foundation disciples and the inherited disciples for the time being. This is also an experience for you." Hearing that, Luo Qinggu immediately said, "Disciple will follow master's instructions." Lin Feng nodded and pointed at Xiao Yan, Yang Qing, and Li Yuanfang. "You three pack up and get ready to go to Yinghai." Then he looked at Zhu Yi. "We will go with you. We will pass by the great Zhou dynasty on the way. We will settle Yunqing's matter first, and then go to the seaside together." Xiao Yan, Zhu Yi, Yang Qing, and Li Yuanfang nodded together. Disciple understands. Chapter 7:12. After making arrangements with the disciples, Lin Feng smiled and said, "Speaking of which, there is a local tyrant on our mountain when we go to the East Sea this time." With a thought, he sent out a divine sense. The next moment, Kuei Ox King turned into a high-spirited man and appeared in front of everyone. When Xiao Yan and others saw this, they were all enlightened. The Kuei Ox tribe living in the Sky Valley of Yujing Mountain was subdued by Lin Feng in Kunlun Mountain, but they did not live in Kunlun Mountain all the time. They came from Liubo Mountain, which was 7,000 miles away from Donghai, headed by Kuei Ox King. These Kuei Ox tribe used to listen to a powerful figure in the spirit realm called Tao Master Liubo on Liubo Mountain, and then they cultivated according to their tribe's talent. The Kuei Ox tribe valued kindness, so they regarded Tao Master Liubo as their master. Later, Tao Master Liubo traveled to Kunlun Mountain, and the Kuei Ox tribe followed him away from Donghai and went to the westernmost inland. Unfortunately, Tao Master Liubo lost contact with them later, and these Kuei Ox tribe stayed in Kunlun Mountain to guard the sorrow tree seedlings planted there until they met Lin Feng. After the Kuei Ox King arrived, he first saluted Lin Feng, then he greeted Xiao Yan and the others one by one. After listening to Lin Feng's instructions, he laughed heartily, saying, "Sect leader is understanding of this old ox. This old ox is extremely grateful." Xiao Yan said with a smile, "They are old horses that know the way, but we are old oxen that know the way." Everyone started laughing together. The Kuei Ox King looked towards Lin Feng begging, "Sect leader, I've experienced a lot of time. Even though I've left the East Sea these years, I can still endure the longing in my heart. On the other hand, there are many young juniors in the tribe who are somewhat homesick. I wonder if I can bring them along on this trip? When we arrive at Donghai, let them go and play by themselves. Don't let them enter Yingxi. I promise they won't ruin your plan." Lin Feng smiled. "There's no need to be so nervous. There should still be some time before the three mountains appear. Unless they're far ahead of schedule this time, we'll just be making preparations. Go and choose the disciples of your clan to accompany us. If something really happens, I can just roll up my sleeve and take all of you away. There won't be any problems." The one-legged bull king was overjoyed. "Thank you for your magnanimity, sect master." Lin Feng's divine sense moved again. Very soon, Jieyu and White Light husband and wife, two people, also arrived in front of him. Seeing Lin Feng, White Light was somewhat embarrassed. Jieyu was also rather embarrassed, not knowing where to put his pair of large hands. As I said before, when you break through the bottleneck and reach the late-stage Demon King realm, I have an errand for you and your wife. Lin Feng didn't mention anything about what had happened before, as if he didn't know anything at all. He said, "Now that the time is ripe, come with me." Jieyu and White Light looked at each other. Then Jieyu bowed and said, "I will obey sect master's decree." White Light was rather hesitant and asked softly, "Can this junior participate as well?" She was not intentionally going against Lin Feng's intentions. These few years on the mountain, she had received Xianmen Tianzong's care. Her husband Jieyu was even single-handedly brought up by Lin Feng, charging from late-stage demon commander to late-stage demon king in one fell swoop within a short time. In White Light's heart, she was very grateful towards Lin Feng. It was also precisely because of this that she was rather hesitant instead. After all, strictly speaking, Jieyu had completely separated herself from Taishu Temple and devoted herself to Xianmen Tianzong, while she still belonged to Taishu Temple's dragon pool. If the errand Lin Feng instructed her next involved Xianmen Tianzong's internal secrets, then it was best for her to avoid arousing suspicion. Lin Feng smiled faintly. "No matter. It's said to be an errand, but actually, it might also be a fortuitous encounter for you and your wife. Naturally, to me, Xianmen Tianzong, it also has boundless benefits. Since Lin Feng himself said so, White Light immediately cupped her fists and bowed. This junior obeys and listens to senior's instructions. Lin Feng nodded. Yingxi's 3 mountains are about to come into being. This seat will bring my disciples and sect members to head to the East Sea first to familiarize themselves with the environment in advance. You and your wife, follow along then. After Jieyu and White Light heard that, their faces both revealed a thoughtful expression, bowing together and agreeing. Lin Feng then turned to look at Xiao Yan and said with a smile, Miss Shen, has yet to leave the mountain. If you intend to travel together, it's also fine. When Xiao Yan heard that, he revealed a smile on his face. Thank you, master. Since that's the case, after settling your respective matters, we'll set off right away. As Lin Feng spoke, a crack suddenly appeared in the void in front of him. Miao Shihao walked out from within and said with a smile, Oh sect master, I knew it. How can you ignore such a big matter like the Yingxi's 3 mountains coming into being? He turned to look at Xiao Yan, Zhu Yi, Jieyu and the others, sighing, Although there are others accompanying us, it's fine. It won't hinder me from touring the East Sea with you, sect master. Xiao Yan and the others all shuddered involuntarily, turning their gazes elsewhere one after another, as if afraid that Miao Shihao's interest would shift from Lin Feng to them. Lin Feng's expression did not change. Shihao, your heaven and earth avatar has just been formed. Stay on Jade Capital Mountain, and continue nurturing your magic power. Whatever you're looking for, we'll just bring it back for you when we head to Yingxi this time. Miao Shihao smiled coquettishly and shook his head. How can I do that? I definitely can't miss such an interesting event. Even if I can't find anything, as long as I can tour the East Sea with you, sect master, this trip won't be in vain. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and said in an intoxicated manner, Sect master, think about it, the blue waves, the bright moon on the sea, the fresh sea breeze. Just thinking about it makes one feel extremely happy. The group of people's mouths twitched as they laughed dryly and nodded. Haha, that's right, that's right. Lin Feng's expression was calm. Are you sure you want to go? Miao Shihao nodded. Of course. You're fickle, always saying one thing and doing another. You'll change your plans the next moment, Lin Feng said indifferently. Miao Shihao patted his chest. That's on other matters. I've made up my mind to go to the East Sea this time, and I definitely won't change it. As the sect's guardian, how can I be idle all day? The emergence of the Yingxi's 3 mountains is a major event that can almost change the situation of the human cultivation world in the Divine Land. The sect can't just stand by and watch. I also have the intention to contribute to the sect in this matter. Sect master, don't worry. Since I said I want to go, I'll naturally go. Hearing Miao Shihao's high-sounding words, Xiao Yan and the rest rolled their eyes. TSK. Oh, I see, Lin Feng nodded and said indifferently. I'm very pleased that you have such intentions, Shihao. You're experienced and knowledgeable. With you going along, it'll be a great help. I can also be at ease. Miao Shihao covered his lips and smiled coquettishly. As sect master, you finally know. Before he could finish his sentence, Miao Shihao was suddenly stunned. The void beside Lin Feng's main body suddenly broke open, and a tall, bronze-skinned, purple-clothed young man walked out and stopped beside Lin Feng. The bronze-skinned, purple-clothed young man's facial features were very different from Lin Feng's. Even his temperament was different. However, his dermic powers and aura were of the same origin. It was just that the purple-clothed young man had some other dermic powers and intents. It belonged to the Shura Iron Tree, the eternal and indestructible power intent. It was Lin Feng's Iron Tree clone. After many years of hard cultivation in the mysterious Heaventime Light Grotto Heaven, the Iron Tree clone had reached the late-stage Yuanying realm, and was only a step away from becoming an essence soul. Miao Shihao had a faint ominous premonition. Then he heard Lin Feng say casually, My main body won't go to the East Sea this time. I still have some things to do on Yujing Mountain. If there's no need, my main body won't go there. So this time my Iron Tree clone will go with you to the East Sea and explore the secrets of the Yingxi. With that, Lin Feng nodded at everyone, and his main body disappeared on the spot. Xianli, who was carrying the sword case, also disappeared expressionlessly. The Iron Tree clone said nonchalantly, "Everyone, go and prepare yourselves. We'll set off in a day." Miao Shihao stood where he was, dumbfounded. His eyes moved slightly, and after staring at the Iron Tree clone for a long time, he finally squeezed out a smile that was uglier than crying. "Sect Master, can't you leave your clone on the mountain to do things while your main body goes to the East Sea?" Lin Feng's Iron Tree clone smiled. "Is there a problem? Our minds and consciousness are interconnected." Miao Shihao felt lost. No problem, no problem." He glanced at the Iron Tree clone again and muttered softly, "Of course there's a problem. There's a big problem. He's not the type that Brother Shihao likes. Although I also know that our minds and consciousness are interconnected, it feels awkward no matter how I look at it. Sect Master, I suddenly feel that my spiritual power is a little unstable. I want to stay on the mountain to cultivate." Miao Shihao said tentatively. He saw Lin Feng looking at him calmly, while Xiao Yan and the rest beside him burst out laughing. Miao Shihao instantly looked like an eggplant that had been hit by frost. He looked up at the sky and sighed. Forget it. I'll make do with it." Looking at Miao Shihao's somewhat disappointed back view as he left, Xiao Yan and the rest wanted to laugh, but did not dare to. All of them had a hard time holding it in. Shi Tianhao asked curiously, "Master, how did you know that Mr. Miao doesn't like your Iron Tree clone? Doesn't Mr. Miao always like the brave and masculine type? Logically speaking, your Iron Tree clone fits the criteria." After spending so much time with Miao Shihao, everyone was used to his special hobbies. Lin Feng smiled and pointed at Li Yuanfang. In the years that Shihao has been cultivating in seclusion, he has occasionally come out of seclusion and seen Yuanfang. He once said that Yuanfang does not meet his standards of beauty. Li Yuanfang's tanned face was usually calm and serious, but at this moment, he was also rather embarrassed. He smiled bitterly and said, "This disciple is really glad." Lin Feng smiled and said, "What do you guys think about this master's Iron Tree clone similar to Yuanfang?" Shi Tianhao suddenly understood. Skin color, they both have dark skin like bronze. So that's how it is. So Mr. Miao likes people with fair skin. Everyone shook their heads and laughed. Xiao Yan rubbed his chin and said with a chuckle, "Master, why don't you change your original body to this skin color as well?" Lin Feng flicked him on the forehead. "That's useless. He's proficient in illusions. He'll see through the skin color we change into." After laughing and joking around, everyone went back to make preparations. After everything was settled, Lin Feng's Iron Tree clone led them on the journey to the east. The first stop of this journey was the capital of the Great Zhou dynasty, Tianjing City. Su Yunxing followed beside Zhu Yi and thought to himself, "I wonder what founding master and master will do?" He said to Zhu Yi, "Master, I'm afraid of arousing the suspicions of the Great Zhou dynasty, so I don't dare to act rashly. Now, I don't even know where little sister is, and I don't have any clues on hand. I don't know where to start looking." Zhu Yi put his hands behind his back and said calmly, "There's no need to look in secret. We can just go and ask for her openly. We're not in the wrong." Chapter 713. Just go to their door and ask for her. Zhu Yi's expression was calm. His words were simple, and his tone was matter-of-fact. Su Yunxing was slightly speechless. After a while, he shook his head and laughed. He was a steady and thorough person, but because of the environment he grew up in, it was inevitable that his thoughts were a little heavy. Although he was meticulous in his thinking, it appeared that he was not magnanimous enough. So according to his own thinking, he was still thinking about finding a way to rescue his sister. For a moment, he forgot that his ancestral master and master were never overcautious people. Lin Feng does indeed like to plan before taking action, considering all possible factors in all aspects. But once he has made up his mind on something, he never hesitates, doing what he says he will do. Zhu Yi followed the path of a gentleman. He knew of underhanded tricks, but he had no interest in using them. He did things in an open and aboveboard manner. It was extremely difficult for him to handle Su Yunxing's matter himself. As a spy of the Great Zhou dynasty, he wanted to break free from the control of the Great Zhou dynasty and exchange for his sister. Even if he had countless precious items that the Great Zhou dynasty needed, there was almost no room for him to manipulate them. He could only be controlled by others. However, it was different for Lin Feng and Zhu Yi. To the current Xianmen Tianzong, a second-generation disciple's family was kidnapped, so he directly went to their door to ask for her back. This was what Zhu Yi said, and so he did. When they arrived at Tianjing City, they moved into the side courtyard he bought outside the city. After settling down, he immediately sent the steward of the manor to send a letter to the Great Zhou dynasty's crown prince, Liang Yuan, inviting him to the side courtyard. The signature was Xianmen Tianzong, perfected Lord Xuanyi Zhu Yi. It meant that he was not inviting the Eastern Palace crown prince as an official, but was inviting him as a cultivator with an identity in the cultivation world. When Liang Yuan received the invitation, he was still a little confused. However, when he found out that Zhu Yi had only brought one disciple, Su Yunsheng, to the Great Zhou dynasty, his heart skipped a beat. He understood that the banquet was not going to be a good one, but he could not refuse it. That would make him look guilty. So he braced himself and went to the banquet. After a simple greeting, Zhu Yi went straight to the point and said, "My disciple Su Yunsheng has a younger sister, Su Miaoying. She has been taken care of by the Great Zhou dynasty for many years. I'm here today to pick her up and reunite them. I'm sure fellow Taoists will be happy to fulfill such a joyous occasion." Liang Yuan looked up at Su Yunsheng and did not speak. The expressions of the Great Zhou cultivators who came with him changed slightly. Su Yunsheng felt a little uneasy. Will I implicate too many people for my own matter? After all, the person in charge of this matter on the Great Zhou dynasty's side is Crown Prince Liang Yuan. Even though he was going to be punished with hard labor in 10 years, Su Yunsheng was still filled with love and respect for his sect. He even felt a little guilty and worried. He felt that it was because of him that there was a conflict between Xianmen Tianzong and the Great Zhou dynasty. It would not be good for the sect. Liang Yuan looked at Zhu Yi calmly. There must be a misunderstanding, right? From what I know, perfected Lord Xuanyi's disciple is a member of the Great Qin dynasty, and the Great Qin and the Great Zhou dynasty have never been on good terms. Although we are on the same side now, there are still many disputes between the Great Zhou dynasty and the Great Qin dynasty. In other words, he did not admit that it was the Great Qin dynasty who sowed discord between the two sects and sent Su Yunsheng to frame them. Liang Yuan looked at Zhu Yi with a slightly strange gaze. He did not expect that after Su Yunsheng was exposed, Zhu Yi and Xianmen Tianzong's reaction was not to get rid of the spy, but to come to him for Su Yunsheng instead. On the other hand, Liang Yuan felt that it was a pity. It seemed that there was no hope for Su Yunsheng anymore. Hearing that, Zhu Yi's expression did not change. He raised his right hand and gently knocked on his forehead. "Fellow Taoist, do you not know?" A beam of light shot out from his forehead and turned into a cloud in the hall. As the cloud rolled, the sound of people talking could be heard. "How can you become the first seat's disciple? How confident are you? The most important thing is your daily performance in the past. Apart from that, the sect's internal competition is also an important point. Apart from sparring with fellow disciples, you will also have to spar with the young talents of other factions. I believe that my master and the others will observe the entire process and consider it. The one with the best performance will stand out. Just do your best to prepare and display your full strength. You don't have to worry about anything else. We will arrange for you to spar with the young talents of the Great Zhou dynasty and other factions. We will definitely help you ascend to the position of the first seat's disciple of your branch. The rest is up to you." One of the voices was naturally Su Yunsheng. The other person's identity was very clear from the content of the conversation. Liang Yuan frowned slightly. When the conversation had happened, he had been there the entire time, so he naturally knew the content of the conversation. Looking at it now, Su Yunsheng had already been exposed at that time or even earlier. Zhu Yi had secretly left a dermic imprint on him. Normally, it would not be revealed, but whenever Su Yunsheng used a voice transmission crystal or a magic tool to communicate with someone, Zhu Yi's dermic imprint would immediately react and intercept the content of the conversation and save it. Zhu Yi's gaze swept across the cultivators behind Liang Yuan and finally landed on the cultivator with the surname Xiao. The aura of his dermic power is somewhat similar to this fellow cultivator. The Yuanying ancestor with the surname Xiao had a gloomy face and did not say anything. If he really revealed his dermic power to verify it, this matter could not be faked. Zhu Yi faintly smiled. Fellow Liang Yuan seems to not know about this? Then this fellow did it privately. It's not a big matter, and it doesn't matter whether you report it or not. But now that I've come to your door, are you still not going to explain this matter to fellow Liang Yuan? If you still don't report it now, then you're purposely putting your master in a passive position. You deserve to be punished. Zhu Yi's tone was calm, but his words were like knives, each sentence piercing the heart. Su Yinqing watched from the side. At this moment, he seemed to have understood something. Unless Master kills Liang Yuan later, this matter will not cause a full-scale conflict between our sect and the Great Zhou dynasty. Even Ancestor, Emperor Zhou Liangpan, and even the Marquis of Xuanji will not get involved. Lin Feng's metal tree clone, and Xiao Yan and the others were currently resting in the wing room behind this courtyard. Lin Feng had no intentions of paying attention to them, because their level was too low. In Xianmen Tianzong, even though Su Yunxing was one of the best amongst the direct disciples, he was still a young disciple. In the Great Zhou dynasty, he was just a spy who had already been exposed. It was impossible for them to fall out with Xianmen Tianzong just for a person like this. By the same logic, if Liang Yuan was really stubborn, then as long as he didn't court death himself, Zhu Yi would not make an example out of him. But even without much, getting rid of a Yuanying ancestor under Liang Yuan was enough to make Liang Yuan vomit blood. A spy who had already been exposed and could no longer be of use, or a Yuanying stage cultivator. There was no need to choose which was more important. When it came to spying, then there was no need to mention the problem of face. So in this matter, Lin Feng actually would not get involved at all. It was fine if he knew about this. How to deal with it would be left to Zhu Yi. At most, he would listen to Zhu Yi's final report. Similarly, it was impossible for the great Zhou Crown Prince Liang Yuan to hand this matter over to Emperor Zhou Liangpan. Other than showing his own incompetence, there was no meaning. As long as the matter did not become too big, Liangpan would not get involved at all. After Xiao Yan, Zhu Yi and the others gradually grew up, Lin Feng left most of the matters to them to decide and deal with. If they took advantage, then they would work harder next time. If they suffered a loss, then they would sum up the experience and lesson, then go and get back at them. Just like when the reincarnation sect's heavenly axiom had a conflict with Zhu Yi, Su Yunsheng, and Ying Luoza in the Kunlun mountain range. Even if Lin Feng knew, he did not take it to heart. He had to care about everything, no matter how big or small. That was not caring for his disciples, that was being bored out of his mind. In reality, if Shen Qifeng's attitude had not aroused Lin Feng's curiosity, even if it was Shen Qifeng, Lin Feng would have handed him over to Zhu Yi to deal with. He would not have shown himself at all. For the current Lin Feng, only big shots like Liang Pan and Zhu Hongwu could attract his attention. And he and Liang Pan had the same focus. They were all about the overall situation of Xianmen Tianzong and the Great Zhou dynasty. The problems of one of their subordinates would naturally be solved by their subordinates. Whether it was Xianmen Tianzong or the Great Zhou dynasty, they were all superforces that played an important role in the Divine Land. If the two clashed, it would definitely be a large-scale, drawn-out war. It was enough to change the power structure of the Divine Land. This kind of dispute was not only between the Celestial Sect of Wonders and the Great Zhou dynasty. The Great Void Temple, the Mount Shu Sword Sect, the Great Qin dynasty, the Reincarnation Sect, the Purple Sky Dao Sect, the Heavenly Sword Sect, the Northern Militant Imperial Court and other powers would all take action for their own plans. The Demon Realm and Tianhuang Vast Land would also pay close attention. After understanding these things, Su Yunxing's heart immediately relaxed. He smiled and thought to himself, I'm too frivolous. A small matter like mine would not cause such a big commotion. At this time, Zhu Yi's voice suddenly sounded from the bottom of his heart. You care about the sect, this can't be considered wrong. You don't have to worry. Ever since the ancestral master opened the mountain, our sect was established. We have always followed a principle: anyone who enters my celestial sect of wonders will have justice. If Liang Yuan is really unwise and causes the conflict to escalate to an uncontrollable state, the sect will not be afraid. If you want to fight, we will fight. Su Yunqing nodded heavily. Disciple understands. On the other side, the cultivator surnamed Xiao's face alternated between red and white. After a while he sighed. Your Highness, this matter was planned by me. This has caused the great Zhou dynasty to lose face. Please punish me. Before Liang Yuan could speak, Zhu Yi said calmly, these can be dealt with later. Send my disciple's sister here first. The separation of flesh and blood is a tragedy in the human world. I believe that fellow Taoists can't bear to see it happen. The cultivator surnamed Xiao's lips moved. That girl is not in Tianjing City right now. Zhu Yi looked at him and said casually, I am here having a banquet with fellow Taoist Liang Yuan. You can go and pick her up now. The cultivator surnamed Xiao was immediately stunned. Zhu Yi's meaning could not be clearer. If I come to ask for her, you hand her over. I don't care where you find her. Hand her over to me in one piece, and we can part ways on good terms. If you don't hand her over, you don't need to leave either. Chapter 7:14. That Yuanying ancestor Xiao's expression was the same as usual, but his thoughts fluctuated. In the past, in the house of the Marquis of Xuanji, the son of a concubine mortal who was insignificant like dust, could now order him around and he couldn't do anything about it. This kind of feeling really made him feel extremely stifled. Even if he knew that Zhu Yi was not what he used to be, and was far from the troubled young man in the past, even if he had done psychological construction early and adjusted his own psychological position, the Yuanying stage grand ancestor still felt that his Tao heart was unstable at this time. Zhu Hongwu's mentality did not change in the slightest when facing Zhu Yi. This was because Zhu Hongwu's current strength still crushed Zhu Yi's personal strength, so he could still hold the upper hand mentally. This Yuanying ancestor Xiao could not do this. As a confidant of Liang Yuan, he clearly knew that Zhu Yi had killed a late Yuanying expert when he was at the late stage of the golden elixir. Now that Zhu Yi was already at the middle stage of the Yuanying, there was naturally no need to mention him. But the more it was like this, the more unresigned feeling rose in the heart of the cultivator surnamed Xiao. A feeling of being threatened. If I had known earlier, I would have gotten rid of this vile spawn as well. If it was a few years ago, it would have been impossible for him to have such regretful thoughts. But now, not only did this thought take root and sprout, it even grew into a towering tree, occupying his mind. Although he had already stabilized his aura as much as possible, when this thought resurfaced, the fluctuations of magic power on the cultivator surnamed Xiao's body became slightly chaotic. With this fluctuation, Zhu Yi's eyelids rolled, light shooting out in all directions, his gaze instantly looking over. After all, the other was a Yuanying cultivator. He was unable to see through the other's true thoughts, but he could clearly feel the hostility. Within the hostility, there was even a trace of killing intent. Under Lin Feng's tutelage, Wang Lin used the yellow spring true water to purify his spirit soul, while Zhu Yi used the qi of literary splendor to light up the fire of wisdom, causing his spirit soul to be reborn. They were the two with the strongest spirit, but they were also different. The strength of Wang Lin's soul lay in its tenacity and impenetrability, whereas the strength of Zhu Yi's soul lay in its incomparable agility. It was like a bright mirror that was untainted by even a speck of dust. And he was able to clearly observe the slightest movement of the enemy. Liang Yuan also felt it, and his expression changed slightly. Before he could make his next move, Zhu Yi had already moved. Zhu Yi didn't make any big movements. He only breathed lightly, but this breath instantly stirred up the space in the hall. The white mist condensed into a solid form, transforming into a fish scale-shaped cloud, which was 3 to 4 acres in radius. The space in the hall where everyone was in was already chaotic. The cloud floating in the hall only took up about half of the space. On top of this fish scale-shaped cloud appeared a huge beast that looked like several elephants fused together. Its body was covered in pitch-black scales, and it had the head of a dragon, the body of an elk, the tail of an ox, and the hooves of a horse. It was the sacred beast, the qilin. As soon as the qilin appeared, a majestic, righteous and dignified aura of morality spread out, suppressing everyone's expression. Apart from Liang Yuan himself, everyone else felt that the circulation of their magic power was not smooth. When they were stared at by the qilin's large eyes, they immediately felt as if the qilin had seen through everything in their hearts. Their good and evil thoughts were all exposed, and they had no secrets to speak of. To the Yuanying stage cultivators, this was undoubtedly a great humiliation, causing them to fly into a rage out of humiliation. However, the qilin formed from Zhu Yi's magic power was dignified and heavy, faintly containing an incomparably profound and vast power, causing everyone to not dare to act blindly without thinking. The qilin was a virtuous beast, and although it didn't specialize in killing, it had boundless majesty and magical powers, and could easily suppress evil and thieves. The others were only affected by the shockwaves, but the cultivator surnamed Xiao was the true target of Zhu Yi's qilin technique. He immediately felt as if his soul was being suppressed, unable to move. In his great shock, a clear light flashed above his head, and the Yuanying directly left his body, turning into a 7 or 8-year-old child. He shouted in midair, "Open!" As he shouted, the void shook and turned into a small world, but it wasn't used to counterattack Zhu Yi. Instead, it decisively wrapped around his body to protect him. The surging magic power turned into layers of dark green gas, and the dark green small world wrapped around the cultivator surnamed Xiao, wanting to escape into the void. Zhu Yi's expression didn't change, but his eyes flickered slightly. Oh, this escape technique is quite exquisite. In the entire world, it can be considered to be at the peak level. It's a pity that you haven't practiced it to perfection, or rather, the inheritance of this escape technique you obtained is incomplete. However, even if you obtain the complete escape technique and cultivated it to the peak, the chance of escaping from my hands is less than 10%. As he spoke, Zhu Yi's magic power transformed into a qilin claw waved, piercing through the void and grabbing the green light formed by the dark green small world. A huge force pressed down, and the dark green small world cracked like an egg, looking as if it would shatter at any moment. Liang Yuan sighed and stood up from his seat. Boundless power spread out, and a huge figure faintly appeared behind him. Zhu Yi's expression didn't change. He smiled and nodded. The Grand Emperor's scripture lives up to its reputation. Although he said that, he didn't relax his grip. The dark green small world under the qilin claw completely shattered, turning into strands of green light that floated in the air. Liang Yuan didn't really make a move. He didn't even look at Zhu Yi. Instead, he said to the cultivator surnamed Xiao, who was in imminent danger under the qilin claw, "Go and bring him over. A blood reunion is also a joyous matter." The cultivator surnamed Xiao smiled bitterly and nodded. With a thought from Zhu Yi, the qilin claw slapped his Yuanying back into his body. It's naturally for the best that fellow Liang Yuan has such thoughts. Zhu Yi still sat on the chair without moving. The qilin and fish scale cloud formed by his magic power disappeared. The space in the hall also returned to normal. His gaze landed on that cultivator surnamed Xiao at this time. "Not mentioning that you have killing intent towards me. That thought faintly reveals a feeling of already knowing me. Moreover, it even carries a bit of contempt. This kind of emotional change, you should have already known of my existence when I was still living in the house of the Marquis of Xuanji before I became your disciple. Who are you?" After a moment of silence, the cultivator surnamed Xiao straightened his back and slowly said, "East Heaven Gate, Xiao Peng greets Xuani True Lord." Zhu Yi nodded his head. "Surnamed Xiao, so that's how it is. Madame Xiao may be a mortal, but she is indeed from a cultivator family. This means that she is also not a simple mortal. She should be hiding some secrets." He suddenly smiled. "But there's no difference. In the future when I return to the house of the Marquis, it's the same." Xiao Peng was expressionless and didn't speak. After bowing towards Crown Prince Liang Yuan, he disappeared into the void. This time Zhu Yi didn't stop him because Xiao Peng clearly showed that he was going to bring Su Miaoying over. Before Zhu Yi's words and actions all clearly express one meaning. Either bring Su Miaoying over or you, Xiao Peng, leave your own life behind. If he ran now, it's the same as trapping his master Crown Prince Liang Yuan here. Then he wouldn't be able to stay in the Great Zhou dynasty anymore. How could Xiaopeng do this for Su Miaoying? Seeing this scene, Su Yunqing's heart was filled with mixed feelings. He couldn't help but feel that it was funny that he had thought so much before. After all these years of living together, he already knew what kind of person his master was. There was no need for a slow plan, no need for a secret rescue, no need for careful probing. It was just a matter of showing up at the door to ask for the person. It was up to you to see if you dared to admit it, dared to stop me, and dared to threaten me? This was only because he wanted to protect Su Yunqing's own reputation. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a visit, but a fight. Don't tell me that the matter doesn't exist. Don't tell me that she's already gone. And don't even think about using her to threaten me. I'm in the right in this matter, so I'll come looking for you openly. There's no need to beat around the bush. Everything will be done according to reason. It's just that simple. Liang Yuan and Xiaopeng could only pinch their noses and accept it. It wasn't the first time that the Great Zhou had planted spies. They played a huge role, but there were naturally many times when they were exposed. Once the spy was exposed, he would naturally have to bear the wrath of the other party. Even if he wasn't executed due to the Great Zhou dynasty's strength, he would definitely have his cultivation crippled and expelled. Such a spy had the Great Zhou dynasty on him. Even if he wanted to break free from the Great Zhou dynasty's control, he wouldn't be able to do so. However, when had he ever seen someone like Xianmen Tianzong who didn't play by the rules? After discovering the spy, he actually stood up for the spy and asked for his family members that were being held hostage. The Great Zhou dynasty didn't even pursue the spy, so the spy directly became one of their own. Now that it was Xianmen Tianzong's disciple whose family members were being threatened, it became fair and aboveboard for him to ask for them. His reason was firm, and he had great strength as his backing. Naturally, he would be successful in every endeavor. At this time, Su Yunqing sincerely felt that it was a blessing to have an incomparably powerful sect behind him. To an individual, the sect could stand up for him in matters that seemed impossible. These past few years, the disciples of Xianmen Tianzong felt more and more strongly. It also made their sense of belonging to the sect stronger and stronger. Because of Su Yunqing's personal experience, this feeling was especially profound to him. He, who had always been calm and collected, actually felt a little sore at this moment. At this moment, Liang Yuan's expression was calm. To him, it wasn't that embarrassing. It was just a spy who betrayed them. It was just that the resources he had wasted on Su Yunqing were a little wasted. If Xiaopeng hadn't seen Zhu Yi and couldn't control his emotions, the incident just now wouldn't have happened. There was no point in keeping a hostage who no longer had any value. Handing him over was handing him over. This round was his loss, and he could just plot in the next round. There was no need to care about the gains and losses of a city or a place. After the storm of the instability of the position of crown prince, Liang Yuan's temperament had indeed been reborn. Today's matter is just a small matter. There's no need to argue too much. The appearance of the Yingxi's 3 mountains is a big matter. Father and the Grand Preceptor have already made preparations. If Xianmen Tianzong were to bump into them now, they would definitely suffer a great loss. After the Kunlun Dharma Assembly, Liang Yuan, who had returned to Tianjing City and met Liang Pan, knew many things that he didn't know before. At this moment, he was calm and at ease. Zhu Yi sat in the hall with a normal expression. He chatted cheerfully with Liang Yuan as if the previous incident had never happened. However, as he chatted with Liang Yuan, Zhu Yi was also thinking, East Heavenly Gate? I've never heard of this sect. But looking at the name, could it be related to the Heavenly Gate that was destroyed in ancient times? East Heavenly Gate is located in the extreme east. Is the Heavenly Gate revived? Extreme east. That means it's on the Eastern Sea. From the looks of it, we should encounter it in this trip to the East Sea. Zhu Yi smiled slightly. Very good. Before we officially head to the Marquis's residence, let's cut off some of the Marquis's wings first. Chapter 7:15. Handing the matter over to Zhu Yi to handle, Lin Feng no longer paid attention to it, peacefully meditating in a quiet room at the back of the courtyard. Far away on Mount Yujing in the Kunlun Mountains, His original body was sitting at the top of the mysterious heaven treasure tree. A clear light flashed above his head, and the void opened. The earth, water, fire, and wind existed in the void. It was exceptionally stable and not chaotic. Lin Feng looked at the void above his head calmly. A Tai Chi pattern appeared on his forehead, and was rotating slowly. As the Tai Chi pattern rotated, the principles of the Great Tao were deduced one after another. Then, they were refined, summarized, and mastered. The Yin and Yang chapter of the Heavenly Tao scripture has not been completely determined. This new remarkable power is between the Yin and Yang chapter and the Four Symbols chapter, so it won't be so easy to deduce. Lin Feng was not in a hurry. However, if I can deduce this remarkable power in reverse, it will be equivalent to building a bridge between the Four Symbols chapter and the Yin and Yang chapter. It will be an important step for me to create the Yin and Yang chapter and reach the second tier of the primordial soul realm. Lin Feng calmed his heart and carefully deduced. Dazzling and profound runes that filled the sky surged out from the Tai Chi diagram, and then merged into the earth, water, fire, and wind in the air above his head. There it was as if an extremely powerful existence was being born. In Zhu Yi's courtyard outside Tianjing City, Lin Feng's iron tree clone was also silently sensing the Tao that came from his original body. It benefited a lot and built a solid foundation for him to reach the primordial soul realm in the future. Lin Feng had two clones. Among them, the God of War clone was created by the system. When Lin Feng was below the primordial soul realm, the God of War clone would improve along with Lin Feng's realm. Furthermore, the God of War clone would be at the peak of the major realm. When Lin Feng's main body was in the Golden Elixir period, his God of War clone was at the peak of the late Golden Elixir period. When Lin Feng's main body had just formed his nascent soul, his God of War clone was at the peak of the late Yuanying period. Although the clone of the divine god of battle mainly focused on martial arts, it could also use the Tao arts of the scripture of heavenly virtue. However, it was not as agile as the main body. Even so, when Lin Feng's cultivation was below the nascent soul realm, the clone of the divine god of battle was more powerful than his main body most of the time. After Lin Feng achieved the primordial spirit stage, although his divine god of battle clone had automatically reached the first layer primordial spirit stage, it was still much weaker than his actual body. On the other hand, the iron tree clone was different. Its cultivation was independent, and its cultivation level was not linked to Lin Feng himself. Naturally, it could not form a primordial spirit as easily as the divine battle clone. However, if the iron tree clone could form a primordial spirit, its strength would be above that of the divine battle clone. In the courtyard, Lin Feng's cyan tree doppelganger let out a long breath and opened his eyes. Xiaoyi, come in. Zhu Yi pushed open the door and entered. He bowed to Lin Feng. Master, the matter has been resolved. Yunqing's younger sister, Su Miaoying, has been sent here. I have checked, and there are no hidden marks or hidden dangers. Yunqing is currently accompanying her. Lin Feng smiled. This Su Miaoying should also be a spy nurtured by the Great Zhou Empire, right? Why didn't the Great Zhou Empire use her and Yunqing to restrain each other? Generally speaking, siblings like Su Yunqing and Su Miaoying, who depended on each other and were each other's spiritual sustenance, were adopted by the Great Zhou Empire's spy agency since young. When they grew up, they would often be assigned different tasks without knowing each other. This was considered the most valuable use. Zhu Yi smiled. Originally, Yunqing was only sent to the Great Qin Empire, and Su Miaoying had her own arrangements. However, after Yunqing joined our sect, Liang Yuan placed great importance on this matter. Therefore, in order to strengthen their control, Su Miaoying has always been under their control. She has not been sent out, and she is usually treated well. No other thoughts were instilled in her? Lin Feng asked indifferently. Back then, Su Yunqing and his sister were still young. If the Great Zhou Empire had specially treated Su Miaoying well, nurtured kinship with a warm and superior environment, or bewitched her with romantic feelings, it was not impossible for her to be unswervingly loyal to the Great Zhou Empire, or even take the initiative to supervise her brother Su Yunqing. This was also one of the methods used by the spy agency. Zhu Yi smiled and shook his head. Su Miaoying and Yunqing's personalities are very similar. Hearing this, Lin Feng also smiled and shook his head. Forget it. Let the siblings reunite. As for Su Miaoying's future life, let them decide it themselves. If they can pass the Mountain Gate examination, it is fine for them to join our sect. If they can't, they will be settled in Cloud Mirror City. You can arrange the specific matters as you see fit. Zhu Yi nodded. Yes, master. At this moment, Xiao Yan and the others also came to Lin Feng's meditation room. Once they met, Xiao Yan looked at Zhu Yi and smiled. Second junior brother, that Xiao Gai's other martial arts are sloppy and ordinary, but his escape technique is quite extraordinary. Not bad. Unfortunately, it is not complete. Otherwise, it would not be inferior to the Taishu Temple's Heaven Ascension technique and emptiness circulation. Zhu Yi gave a definite answer. This person claims to be from the Eastern Heavenly Gate, but what relationship does he have with the Eastern Heavenly Gate in the past? Lin Feng smiled. Although the Eastern Heavenly Gate was destroyed at the end of the ancient times, there were still remnants left behind. This Eastern Heavenly Gate should be the sect that developed after inheriting the incomplete orthodoxy of the Eastern Heavenly Gate. The spiritual art that person used just now is called the Roving Jade Heavens escape technique. It is the top escape technique of the Eastern Heavenly Gate in the past. Xiaoyi, you are right. In the ancient times, this Roving Jade Heavens escape technique is indeed not inferior to the top escape techniques of the Taishu Temple's Heaven Ascension technique, emptiness circulation, and Mount Shu's Shaozi sword. Although Lin Feng sat in the meditation room and completely handed the matter over to Zhu Yi to handle, and did not interfere, he was aware of any movement in the courtyard. Xiao Peng's escape technique naturally fell into his eyes. The true Roving Jade Heavens escape technique was something that Lin Feng had never seen before. However, this escape technique was too famous, and its characteristics were obvious. It used a small world of jade light to protect one's body and forcefully broke through space to roam the heavens. Therefore, Lin Feng was able to recognize it with a single glance. In terms of speed, this escape technique was on the same level as the Taishu Temple's Heaven Ascension technique and emptiness circulation. However, compared to the Heaven Ascension technique and emptiness circulation, this escape technique was even more violent and tyrannical. Even if it encountered the obstruction of space by the other party, it could still forcefully break through and escape. However, Zhu Yi's individual strength was far superior to Xiao Peng's, and the Roving Jade Heavens escape technique that Xiao Peng practiced was not complete. Therefore, Zhu Yi was able to capture him as easily as an eagle catching a chick. If it's not that this person didn't obtain the Eastern Sky Gate's inheritance, then the Eastern Sky Gate's inheritance of the Heavenly Gate's orthodoxy is also incomplete. Zhu Yi said. Speaking of which, I really want to see how graceful the Heavenly Gate's inheritors are. Lin Feng said indifferently. The escape technique is incomplete, but that doesn't mean that the other paths, techniques, and divine abilities are also incomplete. This trip to the East Sea won't disappoint you. Let's not talk about how your father, the Marquis of Xuanji Zhu Honggu, is in charge of both the Heavenly Gate and the Grand Emperor. If I'm not wrong, you should be able to see Madame Xiao who caused your mother's death in the East Sea. She's in that Eastern Sky Gate. To be precise, it's that Madame Xiao herself. Zhu Yi's eyes turned slightly cold, his eyebrows knitting together. Madame Xiao. Master, you're saying. Lin Feng waved his hand, gesturing for Zhu Yi, Xiao Yan, and the others to sit down. He then continued. As far as I know, in the Heavenly Gate's supreme scripture, the Great Heavenly Tao, there's a derived divine ability called the Celestial Wondrous Tao. This Tao is said to be a divine ability that only primordial divinity stage powerhouses can cultivate. First, find a magic treasure embryo of high quality and endless potential. Then refine a clone with a mortal body. The magic treasure is the heavens, the clone is the human. Using the mortal body to refine the primordial divinity treasure. Walking the path of the unity of heaven and man. When the divine ability is completely cultivated, the mortal clone and the magic treasure are both taken into one's own body, allowing one to obtain an extremely powerful divine ability and magic power. Moreover, it also has the ability to break through, helping oneself break through to a higher realm of primordial divinity. Apart from raising the realm of the path, One's own magic power and divine ability will also be stronger than normal after advancing. Lin Feng tirelessly explained everything. Xiao Yan, Zhu Yi, Yang Qing, Li Yuanfang, and the others all looked at each other. Master, isn't this too mysterious? Even Yuanying stage cultivators can't refine a magic treasure. Yet a mortal refines it. This? At the end of the day, the person who refines the magic treasure is still the primordial divinity cultivator himself. The mortal clone is also nothing more than a tool to cultivate divine abilities and refine the magic treasure. Lin Feng said with a smile. This is the mystery of the Heavenly Gate divine ability. In history, when this sect was at its peak, it could challenge the Taishu Temple of the same generation. How could it be ordinary? The celestial wondrous Tao is also nothing more than one of the many divine abilities recorded in the great heavenly Tao. Zhu Yi slightly lowered his eyelids, silently saying, That means Madame Xiao in the house of the Marquis of Xuanji is a mortal clone like this? Lin Feng said, This is only my conjecture, but it shouldn't be wrong. Yang Qing muttered to herself and asked, I wonder how much of the Heavenly Gate's strength this East Heaven Gate possesses? Master, just what level was the Heavenly Gate at its peak back then? Lin Feng said with a smile. It was much more glorious than our sect in the Divine Land right now, suppressing the Great Thunder Temple and Mount Shu Sword sect of the same generation to the point where they couldn't even raise their heads. The sect's power could truly stand up to the entire Taishu Temple, causing the last generation emperor, the ruthless emperor, to feel as if there was a fishbone stuck in his throat. In the end, it was also the humans of the world that deposed and killed the ruthless emperor under the command of the Taishu Temple and the Heavenly Gate. It's just that this battle also greatly damaged the Heavenly Gate, causing it to be completely destroyed in the war between the two worlds that immediately erupted afterwards. Lin Feng's voice was a bit faintly discernible. Any sect, no matter how strong they are, there will always be ups and downs, peaks and valleys. The same sect, in different generations, their strength will also be different. Compared to other sects of the same generation, they may not always be able to lead alone. Not counting the orthodoxy of the human emperor, but only the peak of each sect's power. To make a comparison, the Heavenly Gate at its peak can be ranked third in the history of the Divine Land, second only to the Taishu Temple and the Great Thunder Temple, and even better than the primitive devil cult and Mount Shu Sword sect. Xiao Yan and the others showed surprise on their faces. The Great Thunder Temple? Lin Feng chuckled. Don't be surprised, back then the ancestors of the Great Thunder Temple really did have a great time. The most prosperous period of this monk temple was when the Buddha opened the mountain, and the 10 great disciples preached. Hearing this, Xiao Yan, Zhu Yi, Yang Qing, and Li Yuanfang's hearts thumped at the same time. Xiao Yan swallowed his saliva, and his voice was a little bitter. This may be disrespectful to Senior Dada, but according to what you said, Master, the Great Thunder Temple belongs to the kind that is getting worse year by year? It was at its strongest when it just opened the mountain, and after that it kept going downhill? Lin Feng's expression was nonchalant, and he nodded and smiled. That's right. Xiao Yan and the others were all silent. They would not really think that Lin Feng was chatting with them, but their own master was giving them advice. Chapter 716. While Xiao Yan and the rest were deep in thought, Lin Feng's voice continued to resound in the quiet room. Taishu Temple's situation is rather special. Because they have the Haotian Mirror, they are not inferior to the Great Thunderclap Temple, the Heavenly Gates, the Primordial Demon Cult, and the Mount Shu Sword sect in their heyday. But from the perspective of Taishu Temple, their heyday was still in the ancient times, when the founder of Taishu Temple, the Taishu Taoist, coexisted with the Haotian Mirror, and there were many experts in their sect. Lin Feng smiled and said, Ever since the Taishu Taoist and the Buddha went to the Dead Sea, there was no news of them. Although Taishu Temple still ruled the world, it was no longer as prosperous as it was in the era of the Taishu Taoist. In the era 4,000 years ago, Taishu Temple gradually regained its heyday. Unfortunately, it encountered Yuhuang Tianhai, who was one of the top experts among the saint emperors of the demon race. In a great battle, Tianhai died, and Taishu Temple's strength was greatly reduced. Seeing Xiao Yan and the rest look over, Lin Feng nodded. That's right. Although the Taishu Temple can still look down on the divine continent now, it has actually declined a lot compared to 4,000 years ago. It's the same for the Great Thunderclap Temple. Ever since the Buddha left and its top 10 disciples died one after another, it was no longer as prosperous as before. The creation magic treasure Mount Meru was shattered by Yuhuang Tianhai 4,000 years ago, and it can be said that the destiny of Buddhism has been completely destroyed. Lin Feng continued, during the era of the human emperor in the ancient times the Taishu Taoist had the strength to become an emperor, but he did not do so. Instead, he led the Taishu Temple and focused most of his attention on Tianhuang vast land. As for the ancestor of Buddhism, before he founded Buddhism, he was actually the second human emperor of the ancient times after the fall of the Tai Huang. He was known as the Ru Huang. After 10,000 years, the Ru Huang abdicated the throne to his successor and founded the Great Thunderclap Monastery. However, you should already know the current situation. Silently, Xiao Yan and the others digested the ancient secrets Lin Feng had told them. After a while, Xiao Yan smiled brightly. When we go back, we have to tell the boys at home. Zhu Yi Yangqing and Li Yuanfang also smiled. Seeing the situation, Lin Feng also started laughing, his gaze looking toward Xiao Yan. Okay, the things on Xiaoyi's side can already be said to be settled. How are things on your side? After everyone settled down in the courtyard, Zhu Yi invited the great Zhou Crown Prince, Liang Yuan, and the others to deal with Su Yunqing's matter. Like Lin Feng, everyone else rested in their respective rooms. Only Xiao Yan had gone out and had just returned not long ago. Xiao Yan said, I went to the Jing province in the west of Great Zhou. I couldn't find out about the more well-hidden information, but it's not like I didn't gain anything. Looks like the crux of the matter lies with Tang Jun and Lei Jie's father. After the Battle of West Hill City, the Lei clan, one of the 4 major clans of the Great Qin dynasty, chose to betray the Great Qin dynasty and join the Great Zhou dynasty. The Great Zhou dynasty, which had forcefully eliminated the local sects and families, also accepted the Lei clan happily. Now the Lei clan had settled down in the Jing province in the Great Zhou dynasty, resettled, and flourished. The matter that Xiao Yan had gone to investigate was related to the newly accepted disciple of Xianmen Tianzong, Tang Jun, and the leading figure of the Lei clan's new generation, Lei Jie, had at least 70% similar facial features. It was hard to avoid suspecting their relationship at a glance. In addition, the head of the Lei clan, Tang Lai, had personally asked Lin Feng for a favor. If Lin Feng and Xiao Yan still couldn't guess Tang Jun's background, then they could just buy a piece of tofu and kill themselves. The heart-reflecting staircase would only reveal the evil in a person's heart, but it wouldn't barbarically read another person's memories. Thus, Tang Jun had no special goal in becoming Lei Jie's disciple. He had previously concealed his background mostly out of consideration for his own privacy. Later on, when Xiao Yan had openly discussed this matter with him in front of Mount Li, Tang Jun no longer hid anything and told him everything about his background. However, his own knowledge was very limited. According to custom, Tang Jun's name should be Lei Jun. He should be considered a direct descendant of the Lei clan's head, Lei Lai, but in reality, he was surnamed Tang. His father, Tang Wenhua, was a live-in son-in-law who had married into the Lei clan and changed his name to Lei Wenhua. Tang Wenhua and Tang Jun's mother's first child, and he had also been raised as the flesh and blood of the Lei clan. Not long after he was born, he displayed an astonishing talent for cultivation, the 9-Qi True Thunder Body, and cultivated in the Lei clan's lightning attribute Taoist techniques. He was like a proud son bestowed by the heavens to the Lei clan. This person was Tang Jun's older brother, Lei Jie. Unfortunately, although Lei Jie and Tang Jun were blood-related brothers, the paths of their lives were as different as the heavens and the earth. Lei Jie displayed an astonishing talent from a young age, and his reputation soared. If not for the fact that he was suppressed by the even more dazzling dual-pupiled person, Shi Tianyi, he would have been the most outstanding genius of the younger generation of the Great Qin dynasty. On the other hand, Tang Jun was extremely mediocre. From a young age, there was nothing special about him. It just so happened that not long after he was born, an embarrassing incident occurred. His father, Tang Wenhua, who had married into the Lei clan, had actually stolen one of the Lei clan's treasures and then disappeared. This incident had absolutely infuriated everyone in the Lei clan, including the head of the clan, Lei Lai. Lei Jie's talent had been astonishing since he was a child, and he had been doted on by everyone. Even when his own father had stirred up a calamity, it had not affected him in the slightest. Or perhaps, Tang Jun, who had just been born at that time, had focused all his resentment on himself, bearing the storm that should have been borne by two people. But for Tang Jun, there had never been any brotherly love or respect between him and Lei Jie. Ever since he was a child, Lei Jie had always viewed Tang Jun as the greatest stain on his name. His greatest taboo was this blood-related brother of his. Tang Jun was well aware of Lei Jie's thoughts. His own existence seemed to constantly remind the Lei clan's proud son that his surname wasn't Lei, but Tang Jun, and that he also had a father who ran away from home. Lei Jie was unfriendly to him, so Tang Jun naturally didn't treat him well either. More than half of Tang Jun's hardships over the years had something to do with Lei Jie. For many people who fawn on the rich and powerful, making things difficult for Tang Jun was the best way to please Lei Jie. Tang Jun was rather stubborn, but he wasn't reckless. After enduring at the bottom of the Lei clan until he had some ability to protect himself, he left the Lei clan and roamed the world by himself at a young age. The Lei clan originally didn't care much about him. As long as Tang Jun didn't proclaim his origins and ruin the Lei clan's reputation, the Lei clan was happy to have such a stain off their name. However, during this period of time when Tang Jun was wandering around alone, his body had suddenly undergone a complete transformation. His mediocre innate bone frame had suddenly transformed into an innate body of fire spirit. It was the rarely seen Azure Flame Emperor's body. It could be said that it was one of the most perfect innate body constitutions for practicing fire elemental Dao techniques. If one were to really think about it, it was even slightly stronger than Lei Jie's 9-Chi True Thunder body. Although Tang Jun was baffled by this, he was also happy that his hardships were finally over. However, he wasn't interested in returning to the Lei clan. Instead, he had a good impression of Xianmen Tianzong, who had risen to prominence in recent years. So when Xianmen Tianzong opened the mountain gates this time, he came to be apprenticed to him. The changes in Tang Jun were known by the Lei clan. Naturally, the Lei clan hoped to welcome Tang Jun back, but their attitude was a little strange. It didn't seem like they were thirsting for talent, but more like they were trying to catch a fugitive. This attitude made Tang Jun suspicious, and naturally made him feel even more disgusted. According to Tang Jun, the sudden change in his body originated from him finding a former residence of his father, Tang Wenhua. Xiaoyan said. There was a spell formation in the former residence. When others stood on it, there was no reaction. Only when he stood on it, the spell formation suddenly activated, and then his body began to change. But after it was activated once, the spell formation lost its effect. Even if Tang Jun stood on it himself, there would be no reaction. Li Yuanfeng nodded and said, "This spell formation should only be used to activate it." Tang Jun originally had something special in his body, but it was always in a state of hibernation. Yang Qing pondered and said, "This special concealment ability can even deceive a primordial soul cultivator like Lei Lai, the head of the Lei clan. It's really not simple." Xiaoyan said, "That's right, so the problem should be with Tang Jun and Lei Jie's father, Tang Wenhua. Unfortunately, this person is now missing, and no one knows where he is. There are no clues. This time, I went to Jingzhou to ask the people inside the Lei clan. I can be sure that the Lei clan is also trying to keep a low profile, but they are searching for traces of Tang Wenhua on a large scale. According to my speculation, they want to capture Tang Jun. On the one hand, it is for Tang Jun, and on the other hand, they probably hope to find clues about Tang Wenhua's whereabouts on Tang Jun." After thinking for a while, Zhu Yi's eyes flickered slightly. He looked at Lin Feng and said, "Master, disciple has a guess." Lin Feng said with a smile, "Xiaoyi, you suspect that not only Tang Jun's Blue Flame Emperor body, but also Lei Jie's 9-Chi True Thunder body is related to Tang Wenhua, right?" "Master, that's exactly what disciple thinks." Zhu Yi nodded and said, "Although the 9-Chi True Thunder body is rare, it is not unique. It is not strange for it to appear. But the blue flame emperor body and the 9-chi true thunder body appeared on a pair of brothers at the same time. Such a coincidence is really tempting. Lin Feng smiled and did not say anything. The Lei clan could not be blamed for being anxious. One must know that according to the system, Tang Jun's root bone was as high as 9 points. The blue flame emperor body was an innate aptitude comparable to Yang Qing's yin-yang balanced physique, Zhou Yunsong's blazing yang physique, and Luo Qingwu's pure yin physique. Lei Jie's 9-chi true thunder body was also at the same level. If such a physique could be artificially created, the Taishu temple would go crazy. It was one thing to accumulate resources and improve one's physique, but to be able to create such powerful aptitudes as the blue flame emperor body and the 9-chi true thunder body was truly a heaven-defying act. There must be very harsh restrictions. Otherwise, fellow Taoist Tang Wenhua would have ruled over the mortal world a long time ago. But no matter what, he is a very thoughtful person. Lin Feng tapped his fingers on the armrest of his chair. Looking at Xiao Yan Zhu Yi and the others, he suddenly smiled. Relax. If I'm not wrong, the crux of the matter is actually not Tang Wenhua. Xiao Yan and the others were slightly stunned and fell into deep thought. After a while, a look of realization appeared on their faces, and they nodded. Master is right. We were wrong just now. Lin Feng smiled and said, so on this matter, we'll just wait and see. We'll use silence to react. Right now the initiative is in our hands. He stood up from his chair and walked out of the house with his hands behind his back. Go pack up. Since the matter with Yinxing has been settled, we will officially head to the East Sea to prepare for the appearance of the Ying Sea's 3 mountains. Walking out of the room, Lin Feng looked up at the night sky and said, the Great Zhou dynasty's performance is too stable. They look so confident. They must have made many arrangements. What could it be? Chapter 717. The East Sea was vast and dazzling golden light surged from the surface of the sea. As the sun rose from the east, Lin Feng and the others had already left the land and arrived above the sea. The group sat on Jieyu and Kuei Nyoking respectively and flew above the sea. Zhui looked at the sparkling sea and said with a smile, I've only seen the Arctic ice sea before, but it's a different scenery. Lin Feng said, the creation of heaven and earth gives birth to thousands of scenes, and each has its own uniqueness. Li Yuanfang lowered his head and looked at Kuei Nyoking. Senior Kuei Nyoking, what forces and mighty cultivators are worth paying attention to in the East Sea? As it's geographically close to the Great Zhou dynasty, it's affected by the Great Zhou dynasty's control. There are very few powerful sects or aristocratic families in the East Sea. However, the East Sea is vast after all, and the Great Zhou dynasty's control over it is definitely weaker than on land. The forces worth paying attention to are the Luofu Immortal Island, which is also the most powerful force in the East Sea. Kuei Nyoking paused for a moment before continuing. I don't know much about the East Heaven Gate. From what I know, the Luofu Immortal Island is the most powerful force in the East Sea. The island master, Dao Master Luofu, is an itinerant cultivator. He reached the 3rd level Essence Soul Realm many years ago, and is a rare top-notch figure among itinerant cultivators like Mr. Zhuge Zhan, the father of our successor disciple, Zhuge Wanqiu. He occupied the Luofu Immortal Island to cultivate, and did not establish a sect. However, he allowed other cultivators and even mortals to live on the island. Kuei Nyoking added, rumor has it that Dao Master Luofu and the current temple master of the Taishu Temple, Yin Nanlai, have a close personal relationship. Dao Master Luofu is generous and fair. When the cultivators in the East Sea have disputes, they like to submit them to Dao Master Luofu for arbitration. The Great Zhou dynasty has always been very polite to the Luofu Immortal Island. Upon hearing this, Lin Feng looked at the sea and asked, where is the Luofu Immortal Island? The Wild Ox King replied, north of the East Sea, close to the realm passage of the Divine Land and the Infinite Wilderness Land. It's also very close to the entrance of the Ying Sea. It's considered a key transportation point in all directions, and also a place where disputes gather. If it wasn't for Dao Venerable Luofu's powerful magical powers, I'm afraid he wouldn't be able to occupy that place and protect others. Xiaoyan chuckled. It seems that even if Dao Master Luo Fu did not join the Great Zhou dynasty, his relationship with the Great Zhou dynasty is not bad. It seems that the Hua clan is guarding the southern border passage for the Great Qin dynasty. Quinyu King said. It should be the latter. The cultivators of the Great Zhou dynasty and the local cultivators of the Eastern Sea had a dispute. If Dao Venerable Luo Fu encountered them, he could be impartial and fair. No one would object. As long as it's not a big deal, the Great Zhou dynasty would also give Dao Venerable Luo Fu some face. When the others heard this, they nodded. The third-level Essence Soul Realm and the Dao Integration Realm was Dao Venerable Luo Fu's greatest confidence. In this world, there was a limited number of Dao Integration stage powerhouses. For example, the Celeritas Sword Sect, the Thunderbolt Sword Sect, the Lei family, and the Sure family were all dominant forces. However, they didn't have any Dao Integration stage powerhouses. It was indeed more difficult for an expert to appear among itinerant cultivators. It was even more difficult to cultivate to the Dao Integration realm. No matter who it was, they were almighty experts with their own unique strengths. Because most itinerant cultivators lived in seclusion and did not have many battles like the large sects, although the probability of producing an expert was low, the probability of these experts surviving was very high. There were many outstanding figures among the itinerant cultivators. If they established a sect, putting aside their future development, at least their current reputation would not be too weak. It was just that they did not establish a sect due to this or that reason. After all, in today's vast land, many of the existing major sects, the founding masters before their establishment, could also be regarded as rogue cultivators in a sense. However, it was indeed quite difficult for low-level itinerant cultivators to make a name for themselves. It was definitely much harder than the disciples who had the inheritance of the sect to teach them. However, if an itinerant cultivator could make a name for himself, those who formed their core, formed their nascent soul, and even reached the essence soul realm would definitely have some skills. The Kuei Ox King continued. Other than the Luo Fu Immortal Island, which has a relatively deep foundation, the other active cultivators in the East Sea are also itinerant cultivators. They each occupy islands with abundant spirit qi or underwater residences in the depths of the sea. They usually do not have much contact with each other. Most of the itinerant cultivators' attitude towards the Great Zhou dynasty is to submit to a certain extent. They obey the orders to a certain extent, but they retain a relatively high degree of independence. There are also some unruly troublemakers who do not approve of the Great Zhou dynasty, but they do not end up well. Zhu Yi asked, "What about the Songhai Sword Sect?" The Kuei Ox King replied, "Although the Songhai Sword Sect's mountain gate is south of the sea, this sect has long been in the same boat as the Great Zhou dynasty. In recent years, their energy has mainly been focused on the land. As for the matters in the sea, they only ensure that their own original interests are not harmed. Therefore, under normal circumstances, the East Sea cultivators do not regard the Songhai Sword Sect as a maritime power." Hearing this, Lin Feng smiled slightly. Even if they did not take it to heart in the past, this time they will have to shift their attention back. The Kuei Ox King nodded his big head. Sectmaster is right. Jieyu and the Kuei Ox King carried everyone and flew. After the Kuei Ox King identified the direction, he laughed and said, "Sectmaster, not far to the east is my old home, Billows Mountain." Lin Feng smiled and asked, "Oh, I wonder if there are still people of your clan left on Billows Mountain?" Kuei Nyo King replied, "In the past, when Master left Lubo Mountain, our clan followed Master to the mainland. However, Master left a medicinal garden on the island. There were some elixirs that were inconvenient to transplant, so he left a few boys to look after them. In addition, besides our Kuei Ox clan, there was another demon clan that followed Master to learn Dao. It was the Sea Spirit Cult clan. We migrated with Master, and the Sea Spirit Cult clan stayed to help Master take care of them." Lin Feng said indifferently, "In that case, let's make a trip together. This trip in East Sea can also be considered as a foothold." The Kuei Ox King immediately led the way, and everyone went all the way to the east. Soon, a small island came into view. Lin Feng frowned slightly and asked the Kuei Ox King, "Why? Does Dao Master Liubo cultivate the Gui Water In Thunder method? Looking at your cultivation method, it doesn't look like it." The Kuei Ox King was stunned and somewhat confused. After walking forward for a while, he carefully sensed the fluctuation of spiritual energy. Only then did he understand the meaning of Lin Feng's question. His pair of bull eyes suddenly widened, and his gaze was filled with anger. Someone occupied Master's Billows Mountain, and even set up a formation around the island, changing the flow of spiritual energy on the island. The Kuei Ox King panted heavily. What is that old seahorse doing? He actually let an outsider occupy Master's Billows Mountain. He was unable to restrain his anger as he rushed towards Lubo Hill. When he got closer, he was already close to the array on the periphery of the island. The red-eyed old bull suddenly calmed down. This array was set up by a primordial spirit-level cultivator? If that's the case, I can't blame the old seahorse. Lin Feng looked at the island calmly and shook his head. This evil guest who occupied the magpie's nest seems to be temporarily out. He is not here. He stretched out his palm and lightly chopped. The outer formation of the island was already broken, but it didn't reveal the slightest trace. Even if the person who set up the formation was connected with the formation, but facing Lin Feng's heavenly barrier, he became deaf and blind. He completely didn't know what happened here. Come, let's go in. Lin Feng said nonchalantly, clean up the island. We will wait here for that person to come back. Go ahead and do it. Don't worry about startling him and scaring him far away. This person won't know anything. After the island is cleaned up, just wait for him at ease. Lin Feng and the rest came down from the back of the Kuei Ox King and Jieyu. The Kuei Ox King immediately killed his way to the island. Jieyu wanted to perform well in front of Lin Feng, so she followed along. White Light didn't make a move, but also stood by the side to support her husband. In a short while, a scolding that was mixed with shock and anger sounded on the island. Who dares to barge into Venerable Gui Shui's immortal mountain? The other party's magical power surged, but he was also a Yuanying middle-stage cultivator. He flew up from the island, wearing a black robe, and glared at the Kuei Ox King. The Kuei Ox King's voice was like the thunder of the 9 heavens. Venerable Gui Shui? Humph. Back then, you listened to my master's lecture and received my master's guidance. Only then did you achieve the primordial spirit realm. Now you actually occupied my master's Liubo mountain. You are really shameless. In the Kuei Ox King's angry roar, the thunderclouds above his head swayed, and thunderbolts struck towards the other party. When the man saw the Kuei Ox King, he couldn't help but be shocked. It was not that he was afraid of the return of Dao Master Liubo, but he had long heard that the Kuei Ox clan had surrendered to Xianmen Tianzong. Thinking of this, he didn't dare to hesitate anymore. His hands formed a gesture and shouted, "Rise!" Suddenly, dozens of demonic aura and magical power rose from the island and poured into his body. The Kuei Ox King took a closer look, and was even more furious. The source of the demonic aura and magical power was all the clansmen of his former companions, the Sea Spirit Cult clan. Those Sea Spirit cults didn't bend their knees and surrender to the enemy, but were forced to become Tao soldiers by someone using a secret method. At this moment, they had no choice but to form a formation and pour their demonic power into someone else's body. With the support of the demonic aura of a group of Sea Spirit cults, the Yuanying middle stage cultivator's magical power suddenly increased, and he could even fight against a Yuanying late stage cultivator. But he didn't do this to strengthen his own strength to fight against the Kuei Ox King. He shouted, "Take it easy. These Sea Spirit cults have a restriction set by my master. If they are alarmed, it will be difficult to protect them. I don't want to kill them." The Kuei Ox King was so angry that he laughed. "Well, you still want to take hostages to threaten me?" The disciple of Dao Master Gui smiled and said, "Kuei Ox King, don't be angry. You are now holding on to Xianmen Tianzong's leg. I don't want to fight with you. I just want to fight for a way out for myself." He looked at Jieyu and White Light not far away and said, "Open a path and let me leave the island. That's my only request." White Light said coldly, "If you escaped at the first moment, you might still have a chance. If there is no deep hatred, we might not chase you to the end. Now that you are playing this trick, could it be that you have a guilty conscience and have done something unforgivable? The Yuanying middle stage cultivator was slightly stunned. Before he could reply, a demon marshal among the sea spirit cults under his control struggled and roared. Kuei Ox King, don't listen to his flowery words. This guy has slaughtered many of our clansmen. His hands are full of blood. Even the boy left behind by Master was killed by him. You talk too much. The Yuanying middle stage cultivator snorted coldly. The sea spirit cult's demon marshal who spoke immediately cried out miserably. The cultivator ignored him and simply shed all pretense of cordiality. He looked at the Kuei Ox King and said in a deep voice, Kuei Ox King, you saw it. As long as I want, these 64 sea spirit cults can't be guaranteed. I don't ask for anything else. I just want a way out. Let me go and don't chase me. Chapter 7:18. Kuei Nyo King glared at him with his pair of big eyes. The thunderclouds above his head rumbled. Obviously he was already angered to the extreme. Liang Hong, you also followed your master to listen to Dao. Now not only did you seize Master's Lubo Hill, you even killed his boy. I actually didn't see that you are such a cruel and unscrupulous thing. The Yuanying cultivator named Liang Hong was embarrassed by his scolding. He snorted and said, since Dao Master Liubo has moved away from this island, why leave such a blessed place empty? It's better for us to occupy it than to waste it. I didn't want Dao Master Liubo's boy to die, but he dared to insult my master. Of course, I have to punish him. In fact, he was complaining in his heart. The reason why Taoist Gui Shui dared to occupy Dao Master Liubo's cave residence was mainly that he had reached the primordial soul realm, and had the confidence. Dao Master Liubo had lost contact with him. Who knew where he had fallen? That was why he came to occupy the cave residence. However, Master Gui Shui and Liang Hong were really cold-blooded. If it was just a turtle dove occupying a magpie's nest, it would not be a big deal to expel Dao Master Liubo's boy and Sea Spirit Cult clan. But they also captured and enslaved a group of Sea Spirit cults, imprisoned them with a secret method, and refined them into their own Tao soldiers. Sea Spirit Cult King had to submit to them for the safety of his clansmen. Dao Master Liubo's boy had a strong temperament and sharp words. He annoyed Liang Hong and was killed by Liang Hong. Later, when they heard that Kuei Ox clan had joined Xianmen Tianzong, Master Gui Shui and Liang Hong were a little uneasy. But after thinking for a long time, they were reluctant to leave Liubo Mountain, so they tried their best to block the news. After all these years of peace, Master Gui Shui and his disciple gradually relaxed. As a result, Master Gui Shui recently went out and left Liang Hong to look after the house. Unexpectedly, Kuei Ox King came with others. What was worse was that Liang Hong didn't receive any news at all. The Guardian formation outside the island also didn't have any reaction. By the time he realized it, Kuei Nyo King was already in front of him. It was too late for him to fake it or escape. To make matters worse, Liang Hong tried to contact his master Gui Shui Zun, but there was no response. The entire Lubo mountain island seemed to be completely isolated from the outside world, which made Liang Hong feel a chill in his heart. Senior Master of Dao Gui was not proficient in escaping methods. Liang Hong was worried that if he simply ran away, Kuei Nyo King and others would chase him all the way after knowing everything from the sea spirit horses on the island. If there were cultivators with fast speed, it would be very difficult for him to escape. Therefore he gritted his teeth and decided to take hostages to the end. He stared at the one-legged bull king and said, You have joined the Xianmen Tianzong, so I can't afford to offend you. But if you don't even give me a chance to live, then we will perish together. Your Kuei Ox clan has been on good terms with the Sea Spirit Cult clan for generations, and the Sea Spirit Cult King is even more of a close friend of yours. If I remember correctly, among the 64 Sea Spirit cults below me, there is no lack of children and nephews that you watched grow up. On the other side, the Black Dragon Jieyu showed his real body of the Dragon Clan, and turned into a huge black dragon. His voice carried a strong dragon's power, which was much more dignified than the one-legged bull king. Hey, you really don't want your face anymore? Liang Hong braced himself and said, "You also belong to the Xianmen Tianzong? Please make an exception. I only need one way to go. As long as I am safe, I will never touch a finger of these sea spirit colts. At any time, you can't touch a finger of them." At this moment, a calm voice said, and a young scholar in purple appeared beside Jieyu. It was Zhu Yi. Liang Hong's eyes widened, and there was despair in his eyes. Although the itinerant cultivators of the Eastern Sea were relatively independent, they still paid a lot of attention to the major events in the Divine Land. If there was a new strong figure, they would also ask about it clearly, so that their disciples wouldn't run into them and suffer for nothing. It was not easy to make a jade scroll that recorded the image of a person, and it was very precious. Ordinary itinerant cultivators couldn't get their hands on one, but it was impossible for a Yuanian cultivator like Liang Hong to not have one. Xianmen Tianzong was also the most legendary and powerful force that had risen in recent years. Liang Hong had seen the image of the core figures in the sect before. Naturally, it could not be missing the second direct disciple under Lin Feng, Zhu Yi. More accurately speaking, because the Eastern Sea was adjacent to the Great Zhou dynasty, the most famous person in the Xianmen Tianzong in the Eastern Sea, other than the master of the Celestial Gate, Lin Feng, was the famous Zhu Yi in the Great Zhou dynasty. Without waiting for Liang Hong to continue speaking, Zhu Yi shook his head. Not only is he heartless, but he also bites the hand that feeds him. There is no need to keep such a scum. As he said this, he stretched out his right hand and spread his fingers. Thin black and white lines flew out and quickly formed a huge barrier. The barrier looked like an altar. It looked like a mandala flower, but it was not a mandala flower. Countless bright and dazzling rays of light intertwined with countless dark and deep black lines, forming lines that looked like the orbit of the stars in the sky. Together, they weaved this independent small world. It was Zhu Yi's great light and dark mandala heavens barrier. The barrier directly covered Liang Hong. Liang Hong was shocked and wanted to use his secret technique, but he found that his connection with the sea spirit horses was completely cut off. At this moment, he was in the great light and dark barrier. Whether he wanted to break through the void to escape or communicate with the spiritual energy of the outside world, he was also cut off. The sea spirit horses on the Lubo mountain were all stunned. Many of them had a strong and unyielding character. This time, they even had the mentality that they would rather die in glory than live in dishonor. But they never thought that Liang Hong would be directly captured by Zhu Yi. Not to mention fighting back. Even if he wanted to use his secret technique to kill these sea spirit horses, he couldn't do it. The sea spirit horse demon commander who spoke first looked at Zhu Yi blankly, then looked at Kuei Niu King. "Niu King, who is this senior?" Kuei Niu King said. "This is the second disciple of the master of the Celestial Gate, Zhui Zhu Zhenjun." The group of sea spirit horses seemed to wake up from a dream. They hurriedly went forward to greet Zhu Yi and Jieyu. Until now, their minds were still full of unreal feelings. Just a moment ago, they were still enslaved and had no control over their own life and death. The next moment, they had regained their freedom, which made them feel like they were in a dream. Under the intentional control of Taoist Gui Shui and Liang Hong, these sea spirit horses were abnormally isolated from the news. They didn't know many things, so Kuei Niu King had to spend some time explaining. After the explanation, Kuei Niu King asked, "What about the old seahorse?" The sea spirit horse demon commander said with grief and indignation, "My father became the mount of old Taoist Gui Shui for the sake of our clansmen." Wild Bull King was also furious. He and Sea Spirit Stallion King had studied under Dao Master Liubo together in the past, and served Dao Master Liubo as their master. They had a good relationship. Wild Bull King knew that although his old friend had a mild temperament, he was tough on the inside. One could imagine how angry he was to be threatened like this. "Don't worry, let's wait here for him to come back." Zhu Yi put away the light and darkness boundary that suppressed Liang Hong. Just now, a boundary that simulated the destruction of heaven and earth collapsed. Liang Hong didn't dare to resist anymore, and explained everything in detail. According to him, it wouldn't be long before Dao Master Gui Water returned from his trip. Under the effect of Lin Feng's heavenly boundary barrier, everything that happened on Liubo Mountain just now was blocked. Even if Taoist Gui Shui left many restrictions on the island, he couldn't find any clues. Lin Feng, Xiao Yan and others also landed on the island at this time. Lin Feng tiptoed lightly on the ground below and smiled slightly. It's interesting to cultivate the Yin thunder of Gui Shui, but I don't know if you can cultivate the black thunder water? If you succeed, it will be a little interesting. On the other side, Jie Yu and his wife White Light also turned into human form, standing together and talking. Wife, I remember that the domain passageway on the East Sea side leads to Tianhuang vast land. It seems to be closer to the Violet Sea Dragon King's territory? Jie Yu asked his wife. White Light nodded and replied, Indeed so. The Purple Sea Dragon King was also a famous great demon in Infinite Wasteland. The Demon Clan named the 10 active Demon Clan Great Sages as the Demon Clan 10 Sages. The Purple Sea Dragon King was one of them. Together with the Enchantress and Golden Rock Great Sage, they were regarded as the top 3 of the Demon Clan 10 Sages. However, it was rumored that the Purple Sea Dragon King had a peaceful temperament and was relatively low-key in handling matters. Compared to the other Demon Clan Great Sages in the Demon Clan 10 Sages, he was the most low-key and most unknown one. However, even the Enchantress did not dare to belittle him in the slightest. It was not only because the Purple Sea Dragon King was powerful, but also because the Purple Sea Dragon King was the leader of the Dragon Clan in Infinite Wasteland. He represented the interests of the primordial Sky Dragon race that lived in seclusion in the mysterious sea. The primordial Sky Dragon race was the same as the Phoenix race. Most of the time, they lived in seclusion and rarely participated in the war between the two worlds. However, be it the human cultivation world in the Divine Land, or the Demon Clan in Infinite Wasteland, they would not neglect their influence. White Light said softly, The demons that barged into the Divine Land from the Domain Passage on the East Sea and attempted to enter the Ying Sea are mostly subordinates of the Purple Sea Dragon King. There is no lack of dragons among them. There are also other demons that borrowed the path from the Purple Sea Dragon King's territory. The Golden Rock Great Sage and the Purple Sea Dragon King are said to have a close relationship. The demons under him also have many dealings. Jie Yu said. Sect Master said that we might have a great opportunity on this trip to the East Sea. Could it be? After a moment of silence, White Light said, I am still in the dragon pool of the Taishu Temple after all. Husband, you are also from there. If you encounter the Dragon Clan of Infinite Wasteland, I'm afraid it will be a lot of awkwardness. Let's see what Sect Master Lin has to say then. As he said that, Lin Feng suddenly chuckled. He's here. A space in the distance split open, and a black-clothed young man walked out of it. He had a gloomy face, thin lips, a high nose bridge, and a deep wrinkle on both sides of his nose. He was originally calm, but when he saw Lin Feng and the others on the island, his expression suddenly became ugly. That was because the restriction he had left on the island was still intact, and had not been disturbed by anyone. The person who came was Venerable Gui Shui, who had occupied the place. He glanced around and his eyes paused slightly on Kuei Niu King, Xiao Yan Zhu Yi, Yang Qing, and Li Yuan Fang, and his expression became even uglier. Chapter 719. Liang Hong could recognize Zhu Yi at a glance, and Dao Master Gui Water was no exception. Seeing Kuei Niu King with Xiao Yan and Zhu Yi, how could he not understand the situation in front of him? However, after glancing around and not finding Lin Feng, Dao Master Gui Water felt a little relieved. Although Xiao Yan and others had become famous at the moment, Dao Master Gui Water had reached the primordial spirit realm, so he still had the confidence to face them. If it was any other time, he would not want to provoke Xianmen Tianzong, and maybe he would just turn around and leave. But now he was not willing to leave, because a magic weapon that he had painstakingly refined was still on Liubo Mountain. It was the result of many years of hard work, and he could not bear to give it up. For a rogue cultivator, especially a powerful rogue cultivator with a high realm, everyone had their own skills. But in the face of a large sect, in addition to being alone, the biggest disadvantage was that the resources at hand were limited, and it was too difficult to refine a good magic weapon. Dao Master Gui Water occupied the cave of Dao Master Liubo. In fact, At least half of the reason was that he wanted to refine his unfinished magic weapon with the help of the spiritual chi here. Now the magic weapon was not far from completion, and he had completed 99 steps out of 100 steps. He was unwilling to give up, no matter how tough he was. With that talisman in hand, I will take the treasure and leave. Even if the master of Xian sect gets the news and arrives, he can only look at me and sigh after I hide in Yingxi. Thinking of this, Dao Master Gui Water made up his mind. He did not waste any words, looking at Zhu Yi, Xiaoyan and the rest. Without even greeting or asking where his disciple Liang Hong had gone to, he directly pointed his finger and thousands upon thousands of black thunderballs struck down towards Lubo Hill. Each thunderball contained violent Dharma power, but it did not feel as masculine and grand as the real thunder above the ninth heaven. Instead, it was gloomy and terrifying. The round thunderballs, like big black bubbles, blasted towards Xiaoyan, Zhu Yi and others. It was the divine sense of Yin thunder of Gui Water. Seeing this, Xiaoyan's eyes turned cold. Suddenly, a pair of pure golden flame wings spread out from his back. The dancing flames were like golden needles. He rose into the air and transformed into a pure golden flaming vermilion bird that soared into the sky. He punched out and instantly smashed a few balls of Gui Water Yin thunder. The Yin thunder was smashed silently, but the tyrannical power was not inferior to real lightning. It bombarded Xiaoyan. All of a sudden, a treasure light flickered above Xiaoyan's head, and a black token emerged. It flickered with a 5-colored radiance and blocked the terrifying power of the Yin thunder. At the same time, the blood and qi in his body suddenly burst out. The golden sun real fire jumped in all the acupoints of his body, dyeing his entire body golden. The next moment, Xiaoyan shook his arms like a vermilion bird flapping its wings. He instantly disappeared in the sky, passed through the terrifying array of thunderballs, and arrived in front of senior priest Gui Shui. Even in the face of an essence soul expert, Xiaoyan was fearless and dared to fight them head-on. Senior priest Gui Shui sneered, and dense black thunderballs appeared around his body to protect him. Xiaoyan also sneered. In an instant, he launched thousands of attacks with his arms, bombarding the thunderballs like a thunderstorm. He broke a Yin thunder with one punch, and instantly destroyed most of the Yin thunder that senior priest Gui Shui used to protect himself. The golden flames in the sky exploded one after another, dyeing half of the world golden. And the vast sea below was also reflected into a pure gold. The smile on senior priest Gui Shui's face disappeared, and he became gloomy again. He looked at Xiaoyan expressionlessly. It is said that this man killed a large number of Yuanian cultivators when he was at the late stage of the golden elixir, including more than one late-stage Yuanian cultivator. He is really extraordinary. With a thought, the Yin lightning that was shattered by Xiaoyan before suddenly all changed shape, joining together and transforming into a black ocean that was like a vast ocean. As soon as Xiaoyan saw this black ocean, he was suddenly alarmed. The blue-black torrent touched the protective light released by the 5 divine badges above his head. And suddenly there was a burst of crackling sound. Xiaoyan scanned it with his divine sense. This blue-purple water was as vast and boundless as the ocean. The sound of the water was not the rumbling sound of water, but the strong sound of electric current. This black ocean turned out to be all composed of violent thunder and lightning. Thunder, the most violent existence in the world, was now transformed into water, the most gentle and long-lasting existence in the world. On Biluo Mountain, Lin Feng looked at this scene and nodded with interest. Sure enough, he has mastered the black Gui thunder water. This is a bit interesting. Xiaoyan, who was surrounded by the black ocean in the sky, was not afraid. With a long roar, a green dragon with black smoke rushed out of his body and wrapped around his body. The black mist green dragon flew up like a mist and kept hovering. Relying on the 5 divine badges to resist the black Gui thunder water, the black mist green dragon took the initiative to attack and devoured the opponent's thunder water. As the green dragon devoured more and more thunder water, its own power became stronger. Venerable Gui Shui's eyelids twitched. He carefully identified the black mist around the green dragon, but it was clearly a strange and overbearing flame. Mysterious sky tribulation flame? Although Venerable Gui Shui lived in the East Sea, he had lived for thousands of years after all. He still knew about the mysterious sky tribulation flame, one of the 7 great true fires in the world. But he did not expect that Xiao Yan could even control the mysterious sky tribulation flame. Wait, I heard that this person has the netherworld evil flame, the sun real fire, the pure yang real fire, and the Nanmingli fire before. Now he even has the mysterious sky tribulation flame. How many kinds of true fires does he have? Could it be that all the 7 great true fires in the world have fallen into the hands of Xianmen Tianzong? Venerable Gui Shui felt that his knowledge of thousands of years was being subverted. Let alone 7, even 5 is not right. How could this boy not be burned to death by his own true fire? Although he was surprised, Venerable Gui Shui did not relax his attack at all. Although he had not dealt with the mysterious sky tribulation flame, he knew something about it. Seeing his black Gui thunder water being burned by the mysterious sky tribulation flame like firewood, he did not retreat but further strengthened his attack. The black lightning ocean that filled the sky engulfed Xiao Yan like a tsunami, covering the sky and covering the earth. If it were an inexperienced or decisive cultivator, he would have hesitated because of the strange characteristics of the mysterious sky tribulation flame. But Venerable Gui Shui had a very accurate judgment of the situation. In any case, his primordial spirit was one with heaven and earth, and his supernatural power was more powerful than Xiao Yan's. Although the mysterious sky tribulation flame was domineering, the mysterious sky tribulation flame that Xiao Yan could control with his cultivation at the middle stage of Yuanying would have a limit. It was impossible for him to swallow all the thunder water of Venerable Gui Shui at once. Venerable Gui Shui wanted to use the huge amount of thunder water to exceed the limit of Xiao Yan's mysterious sky tribulation flame in a certain period of time, thus breaking the defense of the mysterious sky tribulation flame, endangering the 5 divine badges, and finally killing Xiao Yan himself. The thunder water that was swallowed would be regarded as a funeral gift for Xiao Yan. It's just that his decision was fast enough. Xiao Yan was also not slow. 5 divine badges protecting his body, the azure dragon formed by the mysterious heaven tribulation flame opened the way. The vermilion bird formed by the true sun fire merged with his body, turning into a scarlet red flash, already flying away, leaving the area covered by the black lightning water ocean. Above the sky, Xiao Yan's laughter came. Awesome! Except for my fellow apprentices, I really can't find an opponent in Yuanying stage who can fight me so happily. Xiao Yan's laughter suddenly stopped, and he stepped on the air. A milky white pure yang true fire sea spread out from the top of his head. Although it was not as vast as Venerable Gui Shui's Blackwater Lightning Sea, it was still very powerful. In the White Sea of Fire, in addition to the Vermilion Bird and the Azure Dragon, there were also the White Tiger and the Black Tortoise floating together. It was so thrilling that even Venerable Gui Shui, who had reached the primordial divinity realm, showed a cautious expression. The smile on Xiao Yan's face disappeared, and his eyes became colder. He looked directly at Venerable Gui Shui and said, "However, although you have reached the primordial divinity realm, you are an ungrateful scumbag who returns kindness with ingratitude. It is a disgrace to the world to keep you with this vast world." Venerable Gui Shui looked indifferent, but his eyes turned from Xiao Yan to Zhu Yi, who had been quietly watching the battle on the island, and had no intention of taking action. He didn't care much about King Quinyu and White Light. Although Yang Qing and Li Yuanfang were also Lin Feng's pro-disciples, they were still in the Golden Elixir period, so he didn't care about them. Miao Shihao and Jie Yu were at the late Yuanying stage and the late Demon King stage, and their combat effectiveness was extraordinary. He paid a little attention to them, but if there was no Xiao Yan in front of him, he wouldn't take them seriously. But Zhu Yi was different. It was said that his cultivation was similar to Xiao Yan's. If he joined forces with Xiao Yan to beseech him, Venerable Gui Shui had to be careful. Well, there was also a bronze-skinned young man, who also seemed to be at the late Yuanying stage, but he didn't know his specific strength. Just looking at this bronze-skinned young man, Venerable Gui Shui suddenly had a feeling of uneasiness. Thinking of this, Venerable Gui Shui no longer hesitated and immediately pinched a gesture with both hands. On the periphery of the sea area of Billows Mountain, hundreds of huge formations suddenly lit up. The seawater in the formation flew up into the air, turned into a water dragon, and rushed straight into the sky. The terrifying momentum and mighty Dharma power fluctuations made Xiao Yan, Zhu Yi and others frown slightly. The formation that used the terrain to trigger the huge power of heaven and earth, especially this kind of well-prepared giant formation to guard home, had always been powerful. Venerable Guishui was at the primordial spirit realm. At this time, the power of the formation was quite considerable. Venerable Guishui, who had doubts in his heart because the other party could hide from his formation, suddenly saw the bronze-skinned young man in purple raised his hand with a smile and pinched a strange gesture with his 5 fingers. The next moment, clouds of purple gas emerged from the center of the hundreds of formations in the sea, covering the formations all at once. Venerable Guishui suddenly felt that the formation he had arranged became extremely jerky and ineffective. His face changed slightly. Not only did he sneak in and hide from me, but he also tampered with the formation I arranged? He was about to regain control of the formation when he saw the bronze-skinned young man gently cut in the air with his right palm like a knife. The next moment, hundreds of small formations, before they had time to form a giant formation, were all silently annihilated. The light of the formation was all dim. Venerable Guishui was shocked and felt that the connection between him and the formation was completely cut off. He looked at the bronze-skinned young man in purple in shock. When did such a master appear in Xianmen Tianzong? The person who made the move was naturally Lin Feng's iron tree doppelganger. He smiled and looked at Venerable Guishui in the sky, but his eyes flickered slightly. It's very strange. This person seems to have a special reliance. What is it? Chapter 720. Lin Feng's appearance was now widely known, not only in the Divine Land, but also in Donghai. Most people had seen the image of light and shadow. The facial features of the doppelganger of the war god were the same as his real body, so it was not difficult to recognize him. But the doppelganger of Taishu was different. First, its appearance was different from Lin Feng's, and second, it rarely appeared in front of the world. In the vast land of the Divine Land, large forces such as the Taishu Temple, the Great Zhou Dynasty, the Great Qin Dynasty, and the Mount Shu Sword Sect, or other well-informed forces could more or less get the image of Taishu's doppelganger. However, for a rogue cultivator like Senior Taoist Guishui, it was too difficult for him to recognize Taishu's doppelganger. Exalted Guishui stared at Lin Feng. His figure suddenly changed in the sky. He took off his human form and turned into a huge black lightning ball. This black thunder ball was suspended over Lubo Mountain, like a black sun, overlooking the island and the sea below. This was the incarnation of Venerable Guishui's primordial spirit. On the black thunder ball transformed by his primordial spirit, a large number of black thunder snakes kept jumping like terrifying electric sparks, but it was gloomy and made no sound. If one were to look closely, they would discover that these lightning snakes were actually streams of black water, and they were all formed by the black thunder water. Even the disciples of Xianmen Tianzong are just yuanying practitioners. The lightning ball vibrated in the air, instantly tens of thousands of streaks of black gui lightning blotting out the sky and covering the earth fell down, crisscrossing in the air and transforming into layers upon layers of black lightning giant net, falling down towards Lin Feng, Xiao Yan and the others. Xiao Yan and Zhu Yi both frowned, but Lin Feng waved his hand at them and said with a smile, "This person has some secrets. Leave it to me, lest he runs away." As he said, Lin Feng suddenly released a bright light and rushed into the sky. In the clear light, a huge shadow appeared. It looked like a giant with 4 legs and 8 arms but no head. It also looked like a giant tree, with 4 roots rooted in the ground and 8 thick branches reaching out to the sky. The silhouette gradually became clearer, turning into a towering tree about 150 meters tall. The 4 thick roots below pierced into the void, respectively stabilizing the earth, water, fire, and wind. The 8 gigantic branches above, on the other hand, were the 8 great creation phenomena of heaven, earth, wind, lightning, water, fire, mountain, and lake. Black and white light flickered continuously on this giant tree, but the leaves on the branches remained motionless, like iron plates. a powerful intent domain that could cross thousands of calamities and be indestructible and immortal emanated from it. It was the Dharma form of heaven and earth that Lin Feng's iron tree clone had obtained after cultivating to the late stage of yuanying. The Dharma form of heaven and earth that soared into the sky directly supported the heavy thunder net that fell from the sky. The gloomy but violent black Gui thunder water kept exploding around the branches and leaves of the giant tree. But it did not even move a single leaf on the giant tree, let alone hurt Lin Feng's Dharma form of heaven and earth. On the contrary, on the 8 branches of the giant tree, the 8 diagrams evolved together and rotated, directly tearing apart the heavy thunder net. In the sky, the black thunderball transformed by the primordial spirit of Senior Gui Shui trembled. What a fierce Dharma form of heaven and earth! This is not the power that a yuanying cultivator should have at all. Even the incarnation of a primordial spirit cultivator is rarely so fierce. Although he still did not know the origin of the opponent in front of him, this did not prevent Senior Gui Shui from making a correct judgment. Just the fact that Lin Feng had blocked his means of manipulating the array. In his mind, the threat of Lin Feng immediately rose to a higher position than that of Xiao Yan and Zhu Yi. Lin Feng did not make a move directly, because he could not see through Lin Feng's strength. But now that Lin Feng made a move, Senior Gui Shui immediately felt alarmed. Although he was only an opponent at the late stage of yuanying, looking at Lin Feng, Senior Gui Shui felt a chill in his heart, and a sense of extreme danger arose in his heart. Although Xiao Yan and Zhu Yi were amazing, Senior Gui Shui still had the confidence to face them. But facing this bronze-skinned young man in purple, Senior Gui Shui clearly felt that the opponent had the ability to threaten his life. This was extremely absurd. A late nascent soul stage cultivator, who had not revealed any powerful magic treasures, was able to make a nascent soul stage cultivator faintly feel the terror of death. For the vast majority of people in the Heaven Yuan world, this was something that toppled their worldview. But Senior Gui Shui really had a strong sense of crisis now. This bronze-skinned young man in purple gave him an extremely dangerous feeling. It was not that Senior Gui Shui was not confident in himself. On the contrary, it was because he had wandered alone for many years and achieved the primordial spirit. His divine soul was agile and his willpower was strong, so he had a keen sense of great danger. What's more, even if this bronze-skinned young man in purple was not so powerful, Xiao Yan and Zhu Yi also joined in, and the magic formation set by Senior Gui Shui could not be activated, so he was indeed in an extremely dangerous situation. Thinking of this, Senior Gui Shui made a prompt decision and turned around to leave. The huge thunderball transformed by his primordial spirit turned into a black light and was about to break the void and escape. He did not want that magic weapon. Nothing could be more important than his life. As long as he was alive, there was hope. But he heard Lin Feng chuckle, and the branches and leaves of the heaven and earth manifestation in the shape of a giant tree shook for the first time since it appeared. The 8 diagrams were all broken and turned into a huge whirlpool. The earth, water, fire, and wind under the tree began to merge and evolve. A powerful aura of a new creation, and the beginning of the world was poured into the whirlpool at the top of the tree through the tree. The power of the whirlpool suddenly became stronger and directly fixed the void again. Senior Gui Shui's primordial spirit, which had turned into a black light and escaped, reappeared in the sky and turned back into a black thunderball. The huge black thunderball was forcibly sucked in by the even larger 8 diagrams whirlpool and could not break free. Not only could it not break free, but it was further sucked into the center of the whirlpool. Senior Gui Shui was shocked and activated his own Dharma power, but he could only watch himself continue to slide into the abyss step by step. The sense of crisis in his heart was verified at this moment, and Senior Gui Shui only felt a chill in his heart. The primordial spirit realm was a completely different concept from the one below the primordial spirit realm. It was almost an insurmountable moat. In the entire history of the Tianyuan Great World, was there any case of a person below the primordial spirit realm defeating, or even killing a primordial spirit realm expert? The answer was yes, but the number was so few that it was frighteningly rare. All of them were legendary existences. Each time it involved a variety of special factors, which combined to create a miracle that was different, and could not be replicated. There was no reference value between each other. In other words, most of the people who completed these miracles might not be able to do it again even if they tried again. But now, seeing that he could not break free from the suppression of the power of Lin Feng's heaven and earth form, Senior Gui Shui was sure that no matter how many times he tried again, as long as he dared to fight with Lin Feng's iron tree doppelganger, the result would end in his failure. Perhaps he did not fight at all, but fled immediately before Lin Feng's heaven and earth form appeared. Could he escape? But this idea only made Senior Gui Shui feel a burst of shame. On Liubo Mountain, Xiaoyan, Zhu Yi and other Xianmen Tianzong people were fine, but a group of sea spirit colts had been completely dumbfounded. In front of them, a towering tree, like a pillar supporting the sky, fixed the void. A huge vortex appeared at the top of the tree, firmly sucking a huge black thunder ball. At this moment, a small half of the black thunder ball had been completely swallowed by the vortex, leaving only 2/3 outside, constantly struggling and shaking, trying to get out. Countless bolts of black gui lightning water were stirring incessantly like giant dragons. Any one of these bolts would be able to kill an ordinary nascent soul cultivator, but no matter how one looked at it, it was as if they were at the end of their rope, and they were struggling futilely before death. A primordial spirit expert revealed his primordial spirit incarnation, but he could not defeat the heaven and earth form of a late-stage Yuanian cultivator. Lin Feng did not use formations, magic treasures, or anything else. He just used his own heaven and earth form to fight against Senior Gui Shui's primordial spirit incarnation, and suppressed it. Xiaozhen Jieyu White Light and Kuei Niu King were also shocked. Even a doppelganger is so strong? Miao Shihao's eyes were even brighter. TSK Sect Master is indeed Sect Master, but this doppelganger is too ugly. Xiao Yan and the other apprentice brothers looked at each other, a smile appearing on their faces. Master is master. Why are you in a hurry to leave now? Xiao Yan stared at the black thunder ball in the sky and said with a smile, there are only Yuanian cultivators here, and they have achieved primordial spirit. Isn't it too shameful to run away in front of Yuanian cultivators? At this moment, Senior Gui Shui really had an urge to curse. Damn it! How could this be called a Yuanian cultivator? How could this be called a heaven and earth form? Senior Gui Shui was dissatisfied, and so was Lin Feng. Looking at the black thunder ball in the sky being sucked in by the vortex, he slowly shook his head. The iron tree doppelganger has enough defense, but not enough attack. It is still a lot worse than the real body. If the real body was at late-stage Yuaniing, the heaven and earth form should be able to tear this person's primordial spirit incarnation directly. At this moment, half of the black thunder ball in the sky had been swallowed by the vortex. Senior Gui Shui's roar came from the thunder ball. And the next moment, the thunder ball shook violently. Gui Shui Heavenly Thunder Shock. The thunder ball first shrank, and then rapidly expanded around. This was Senior Gui Shui's desperate use of all his strength. But Lin Feng was not afraid at all. The whirlpool continued to spin, whittling away Grand Emperor Gui Shui's magic power. One after another, the images of the 8 trigrams gathered together, causing the entire whirlpool to change. It actually gave birth to the power of the realm, about to condense into a real and complete small world. Seeing that he could not escape, Senior Gui Shui gritted his teeth, and a white light suddenly shot out from the black thunder ball. There was a talisman in the white light, and the talisman burned quickly, making the white light break the void fixed by Lin Feng's heaven and earth form. The white light turned into a path to the sky, directly penetrating the layers of space, like a special passage. When Lin Feng saw the passage of white light, his eyes suddenly lit up. Chapter 721. When Lin Feng saw the white light channel, his eyes lit up. It's really weird. This white light channel directly penetrated the realm, and was about to take Venerable Gui Shui away. Lin Feng looked at the end of the white light, and saw the other side was sparkling. It was also a sea, but the sea was surrounded by white clouds and mist, which looked illusory and real. Although he hadn't entered Yingxi in person, Lin Feng quickly recognized that the end of this white light channel led to Yingxi. No wonder Venerable Guishui was not afraid. Yingxi was the same as the void battlefield called Empty Sea. The situation inside was complicated. Even if a primordial soul realm powerhouse entered it, it would be extremely difficult to find the direction. Even if Lin Feng himself entered it, and could guarantee that he wouldn't get lost, it would be quite difficult to find people or things. It's just that he can actually directly open a hole in the void and teleport himself into Yingxi instead of going through the realm channel that connects Yingxi and the vast land of the Divine Land. Where did this guy get his talisman? Lin Feng was amazed. At the same time, Lin Feng also had an ominous premonition. I'm afraid this is not simple. While thinking, Lin Feng didn't slow down at all. Seeing that Venerable Guishui was going to escape with the white light, Lin Feng waved his hand and threw out a black and white jade. The jade burst into amazing brilliance in the air. The black and white colors alternated, and the sky was full of light and clouds, as if a sun that blended yin and yang was slowly rising. Countless mysterious runes and figures densely covered the void, shaking the world. The next moment, the endless brilliance turned into a shocking rainbow, as if it was going to split the whole sky into two. In the half-black and half-white brilliance, the sky was full of gods and Buddhas chanting, and the light and shadows of gods and Buddhas turned into substance, standing on the brilliance together as if standing on a bridge across the sky and reaching the other side. As soon as this bridge appeared, it immediately stopped the white light generated by Venerable Guishui's talisman, and the void that had been opened before gradually closed. The white light was suppressed by the black and white divine light emitted by Lin Feng's jade. It didn't dissipate, but it couldn't move either. Seeing this scene, Senior Master Guishui was dumbfounded. His state of mind, which had been cultivated for many years, was also shaken at this moment, and he couldn't believe it. The moment he lost focus, the power of his primordial spirit incarnation weakened even more. It was completely suppressed by Lin Feng's heaven and earth Dharma idol. Xiao Zhener looked at that horrifying black and white light in shock. She turned to Xiao Yan and said, "Brother Xiao Yan, is that?" Xiao Yan nodded. That is the crystallization of Master's divine light of creation. The divine light of creation was blessed by the heavens, but only Lin Feng's main body could activate it. Neither of his clones could use it. However, it was extremely difficult to condense the divine light of creation into a crystal. Even Lin Feng himself only had 3 of them, and he couldn't share them with his disciples even if he wanted to. Although a crystal of divine light was wasted, Lin Feng didn't feel it was a pity. He intuitively felt that the talisman that produced the white light was of great value. After cutting off Senior Master Guishui's retreat, Lin Feng began to deal with him. Senior Master Guishui, who had lost his retreat, began to fight like a trapped beast. Lin Feng glanced at him with a smile. He turned his palm, and an ethereal and unpredictable ice mist emerged and floated in his palm. Between the mist and illusion, there was a faint flash of dazzling sword light. This was the most precious treasure of the Tianqi sect, second only to the polar sky peak in the past. It was called Ice Soul Cloud, and it was a magical sword. Its body was constantly changing between the 2 forms of ice crystal and water mist. After Chao Wei and Ice and Fire Elders were all captured and suppressed by Lin Feng, this magic treasure also fell into his hands, and finally chose to surrender. Since the white light was already in his hands, Lin Feng didn't waste time with Senior Master Guishui, and directly attacked with Ice Soul Cloud. The difficulty of resisting, suppressing, defeating, killing, and capturing alive was completely different. Although the incarnation of Senior Master Guishui's primordial spirit could not defeat Lin Feng's law embodiment, it was still a primordial spirit realm, and it was not a trivial matter if it fought with all its strength. Lin Feng suppressing Venerable Guishui into a disadvantageous position, and even officially defeating him, or beating him until he escapes, or even injuring him. This is one thing, but if Venerable Guishui doesn't run away and fights to the death, that is another thing. However, now that Lin Feng had Ice Soul Cloud, the situation was completely different. Although the cultivation of the Iron Tree incarnation at the late Yuanying stage could not fully exert the power of this incarnation-level magic treasure, it was enough. Senior Master Guishui watched the black Gui thunder water manifested by his primordial spirit being frozen into ice step by step. and he felt a chill in his heart. It's a pity that little Lin is not here, otherwise his Xiantian God sealing flag can come in handy. Lin Feng smiled and shook his head. He exerted more strength, and Ice Soul Cloud and his Heaven and Earth Law embodiment crushed together, directly destroying the incarnation of Senior Master Guishui's primordial spirit. Poor Senior Master Guishui, who had cultivated hard for thousands of years, lost everything today. When he was at the Yuanying stage, he once listened to the lecture of Dao Master Liubo, and was helped by Dao Master Liubo to prove his primordial spirit. Later, he took advantage of Dao Master Liubo's absence to kill and rob the cave mansion. Today, he was killed by Lin Feng's Iron Tree incarnation at the late Yuanying stage. However, after his incarnation of primordial spirit was destroyed, Lin Feng kept a trace of his remnant soul for interrogation. Senior Master Guishui was extremely depressed. At this time, he suddenly remembered what Lin Feng called himself when he talked to Xiao Yan, Zhu Yi, and others before taking action. "I'm your master." The person who could talk to Xiao Yan and Zhu Yi like this, except for the legendary master of Xianmen Lin Feng, there was no one else. At this moment, Senior Master Guishui finally knew that the bronze-skinned young man in purple in front of him turned out to be an incarnation of Lin Feng. After realizing it for a moment, Senior Master Guishui had a feeling that his defeat was not unjust. However, when he thought that Lin Feng's Iron Tree incarnation was only at the late Yuanying stage, he felt that it was extremely absurd. But now that he had fallen into the hands of Lin Feng, everything was beyond his control. Whatever Lin Feng asked him, he answered honestly. "Where did you get this talisman?" At this moment, Lin Feng had already taken back the Heaven and Earth Law embodiment. He smiled and stared at the white path suppressed by the black and white divine light in the sky, and asked Senior Master Guishui. Senior Master Guishui's divine soul was controlled, so he could only tell the truth. "I secretly submitted to the Great Zhou dynasty before, and this talisman was obtained from the Great Zhou dynasty." He heard that after the Kuei Niu clan submitted to Xianmen Tianzong, he still dared to occupy Billows Mountain. In addition to trying his best to block the news, the more important reason was that he had become a primordial spirit offering of the Great Zhou dynasty. However, due to other considerations, he had not been known to the outside world. In addition to the talisman, he also got other benefits from the Great Zhou dynasty, and the talisman was a life-saving treasure given to him by the Great Zhou dynasty. Before, Senior Master Guishui saw that Lin Feng did not come, so he did not retreat immediately, but wanted to take the magic weapon that had not been successfully refined on Billows Mountain. As a result, his greed and unwillingness cost him his whole life. Hearing this, Lin Feng's expression did not change, but he had some guesses in his heart. "Besides you, who else in Donghai got such a talisman? Who else has submitted to the Great Zhou dynasty?" Lin Feng continued to ask. Over the years, a considerable number of rogue cultivators in Donghai have submitted to the Great Zhou dynasty, but I don't know much. Senior Master Guishui said a few names, most of which were cultivators of Yuanying stage, and then added, "As far as I know, I am the only one who has this talisman. I think only the cultivators of primordial spirit realm can get it." Lin Feng nodded, did not speak, and meditated. On the side, the Sea Spirit Cult Demon Commander looked at Lin Feng with a face full of reverence. He wanted to speak, but he didn't dare. He quietly moved closer to the Kuei Ox King. "Ox King, please help me. Tell the master of the Celestial Sect of Wonders where my father is right now." Sea Spirit Cult King was forced to submit to Senior Master Guishui for the safety of his clan, and became the mount of Senior Master Guishui. But this time when Senior Master Guishui went out, Sea Spirit Cult King was still with him, but when he came back he disappeared. As soon as Kuei Niu King woke up, he hurriedly came to Lin Feng, not daring to interrupt Lin Feng's thinking, and waited quietly. Lin Feng heard the words of Sea Spirit Cult Demon Commander. He turned his head to look at Kuei Niu King, smiled slightly, and then looked at the remnant soul of Senior Master Guishui, who was under his control. "Did you hear it? Tell me clearly." Senior Master Guishui said in a muffled voice. "It's still alive, but it has been handed over to the people of Luofu Immortal Island. From them, I exchanged it for treasures to refine my own magic weapons. Now, I don't know whether the Sea Spirit Cult King is alive or dead. Right now, Venerable Guishui's remnant soul was captured by Lin Feng. Whatever Lin Feng asked him, he could only answer honestly. Therefore, there was no possibility of him lying. The truth was that he really took the Sea Spirit Stallion King to exchange for treasures with the people of Luofu Immortal Island. Yang Qing pondered and said, Master Luofu's reputation in Donghai has always been good. The people under his command should not be too bad, right? If the Sea Spirit Cult King tells them about what happened in Billows Mountain, won't your scandal be exposed? Senior Master Guishui replied. I controlled the Sea Spirit Cult's divine soul and put a restriction spell on it. It fell into a deep sleep. The people of Luofu Immortal Island want a Sea Spirit Cult of Demon King level to take its bones to refine medicine, but it needs to be alive before refining the medicine. In order to avoid trouble, they won't release the restriction spell I put, so they won't know the origin of this Sea Spirit Cult, and they won't know what happened in Billows Mountain. Even if they know, I just need to deceive them for a period of time, refine my magic weapon, and then leave Billows Mountain to hide in Ing Sea. The group of Sea Spirit cults suddenly became furious, and Kuei Nyo King also kept panting, staring at Senior Master Guishui. Lin Feng handed the remnant soul of Senior Master Guishui to Xiao Yan, and then said to his brothers, his magic weapon, I have already taken it, and I will deal with it later. Now this matter is handed over to you. Go and exchange the Sea Spirit Cult King back. Pay attention to the way and wording. Since we have come to Donghai, we can also say hello to the biggest local tyrant here, so as not to be rude. Hearing this, Kuei Nyo King and the Sea Spirit cults immediately thanked him again and again. Xiao Yan and the others nodded together, and then asked, Master, what about you? Lin Feng flicked his fingers, and the black and white divine light in the air dissipated, and the white light played its role again, breaking the void and going straight to Ing Sea. I will go and see where this road leads and what secrets are hidden. After saying this, Lin Feng immediately stepped on the white light path. It seemed that only one person could walk on this road at a time. As soon as Lin Feng stepped on the white light, he was immediately rolled up and taken into the void. You're tuning in to the Limei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.